Oh, is Hoffman coming?
We're texting.
Okay. We have 5 of us here right now, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. 2 of us are online. So if you, I will call the meeting to order at 1:06, and would you please call the roll?
Robin? Long?
Here.
Powell?
Here.
Is remote, non-voting. Cavell? Smith Charles? Wiper is remote, non-voting. Hoffman? Markham.
I'm here. Okay. Those of us in the room, let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And we will jump right into the budget presentation, starting with the Board of Commissioners. Budget book, page 160, and the categorical, page 34. And, yes, so I do want to point out again today, and Cheryl's got something to say, I know. But I want to just point out that we did this process a little bit differently this year. There's more collaboration between fiscal and departments. So I think the book is easier to read. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you again. Day 2, I think yesterday went really well. We stayed on schedule. That was awesome. I just kind of the same thing with Commissioner Markham. We are really trying to make this a collaborative effort. There aren't so many people here today as there were yesterday, but you will see Tucci Oniero is our budget analyst.
Oh.
And Heather Mason and Michelle are here from HR.
I was wondering who you.
Brian and I are here. We're gonna be here throughout the entire process, and I'll do this little spiel and all the processes so that everybody knows that, we're working together. I have asked everyone to put the first 5 slides that they received from us in the front of their presentation, and then they could add what they needed after. I think that it's gonna continue to be concise and useful for you guys, but the whole team is here, so if there's any questions, we should be able to answer them, and if we don't have the answer, we can certainly get back to them. So I just appreciate everybody's time and attention to this really important process that we're all going through.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's
Now,
note that
dun-dun,
Commissioner Smith
dun-dun.
Charles has arrived.
In the hot seat. First up.
Right. And we did change the order of these a little bit from the original published schedule.
Right.
And Mike is on today for the Board of Commissioners, so welcome.
Commissioner
Thank you,
Martin.
Chair. Thank you, members.
I'm sorry, I did forget to mention that the page numbers are on your agenda that correspond to the departments that we're looking at in the books.
Yes.
We love
Great.
that.
Thank you. So this one is in the budget book, it's page 160, and in the categorical, it's page 34.
So again, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioners on the Finance Committee for hosting your department here today. I'm just the Chief of Staff and support of you guys and the staff that we have. I would have to say that, when it comes to county governance and what the Board of Commissioners' role is, a lot of people in the communities have a hard time understanding what that is, right? So they know federal government, they know state government, they probably might even know a little bit about local municipality, but somewhere in there with county government, there's a disconnect. So we have staff here to help connect you guys with your constituents and everything like that. Where I would say with our staff is that you have the best staff in the state of Michigan, if not in the nation. So,
Thank you.
and if anybody wants to challenge me on that, I'd be sure to go to bat for them and let you guys know that, again, we are here to support you in everything that you do. And as I go through my goals, you'll kind of see that that's one of the leading goals that we have. Another thing that, in speaking of staff, I wanted to let you guys know, and obviously you've seen it, is that we've had quite a bit of high-level changes within our department. I was brought on as the interim back in January, and thank you very much for confirming that in April. But, you know, Patty left us in very good shape, and I hope to continue that. And I can tell you that I give a lot of accolades to her and the mentorship that she gave to not only myself, but the rest of the staff here. And, you know, much kudos to her because she helped expand on the culture, have that growth mentality, and did a lot of the goals that she set out. And I will continue to build on those goals today and you know, letting you know what those are. We also had Megan Sellers, who came to us 4 years ago, roughly around that time. Was the operations supervisor, and now has, you know, through growth opportunities, is now going to be one of our deputy county executives. So kudos to her and all the efforts that she gave to us with the staff and not only you guys in support. Lastly, Sarah Moreau, our ex-officer of communications and marketing. You know, she went through a lot of different growth opportunities as well with the Leadership Academy, and really developed a team down there that our comms team that has just been, I think, you know, excelled and really brought your guys' community engagement support to another level. So again, I recently just kind of thought about, you know, what is it that our staff mentality should have, and I look at the musketeer mentality, one for all for one type of thing. You know, they might not have the hyper focused in being able to do another team member's job in another unit, and like essentially a comms team member stepping into an analyst team, but I would argue that they know, you know, at the highest level, you know, what each of those units does and is able to assist where they can. So support within our teams, support for you guys. I think you're going to see that that's a recurring theme here that this staff does for you. So leading into that with our goals, and this will kind of seem like the same message that you've heard before, but our number one goal, or one of our number one goals, is to provide a streamlined process and efficient service and support. So working with you guys to help you get that critical analysis that you need for all those items that come in front of you to make decisions on. That's key to with our analyst team. You know, refining the customization of our agenda management system is going to be a goal that we're going to have in this new budget period. We're already trying to brainstorm and explore different ways on how to present that information to you. We have some ideas that we're going to be probably trying out here in the fall, and then seeing how that would, you know, getting the feedback from you guys is going to be key on that aspect. So the other part is that is just proficiency in the additional training and the knowledge transfer that we have from not only staff to you guys. Again, it's all to help support in making a knowledgeable decision in the decision-making process. So just some examples there are obviously our Civic Clerk and Agenda Management System, our Documents on Demand. I'm not sure if the commissioners, you know, some of you have used it. We are trying to promote that within the departments. It's a supplement in a sense to the Open Oakland, in a sense that it's just there to help enhance it. Open Oakland, obviously, with the clerk's department, what you'll see is the obvious official record of the county and the board. But our Documents on Demand system is a great starting place in case departments want to begin their research with that. The other part to it with the streamlined process and support, obviously we all know we're moving to a new building. So with this budget, it's what can we do to support that move? What can we do to enhance some of the services that you guys get? So we're working with Brian and his team to make sure that you guys have the best and brightest in hardware, software, you know, furniture, anything that you need. That's what I'm advocating to them so that we can move forward with with that move, so.
Can I stop you there? So what is our understanding of who's all moving from this department?
So we had a memo that came out from the Deputy Executive's office, I think it was back May-ish timeframe, maybe early June. And it outlined a lot of different departments, a lot of them are under the executive's role, like health, economic development. I would argue that it's a lot of the public facing aspects, except for the clerk, I think only because she's embedded in where she's at. But treasurer staying here as well, yeah, so I think it's a lot of that kind of community support. And obviously what we do with the community and having our meetings and everything like that, it's giving them the knowledge of what's happening at the county.
So do you see like our meetings in the auditorium will still be where the board meetings are, or do we know if the
We're in
plans
discussions, I
include-
think there, yes. There has been some kickoff discussions, and I think probably what the OCE will come in and probably go into further detail, but there's some design discussions on what that new building, what it's gonna kind of look like as far as conference center space, collaborative space and everything like that. So I can't give you the details and I probably don't wanna step on anybody's toes yet.
Okay.
But there are plans that have now gotten into place. And I think just recently they started with the RFPs for developer and construction manager. So which we have a couple of commissioners who sit on those RFP committees to help choose the right firm to use, so. So goal number 2 is again, increasing transparency, not only internally, like I mentioned with documents on demand, that could also be utilized externally as well, but with our external customers through our board portal. And having them and build upon that enhancement of, can the community members, can our residents of Oakland County find the business of Oakland County in an easy fashion? And I think what we have with our VOC website, which again, it all kind of ties together, is that we have that board portal there where they can go into each individual meeting and get the same type of information that you guys have for decision making. So, and that just brings about compliance with the sunshine laws and everything like that we have. Let me see. So easy to access, and then we also have our YouTube page where people can come and see and watch you guys. Currently live streaming, but we encourage the recordings and everything like that, and we have that on our YouTube page as well. We typically get anywhere from 100 to 200 people watching, so so we'll go from there. Goal number 3 is encourage the training opportunities in the personal and professional growth. It's big in enhancing that growth culture, is that our team goes through those training opportunities so that they can increase their knowledge base.
And then they bounce into deputy.
I look at that as a positive.
Yeah.
I think that's great. That we are, providing that to them and they're coming in and getting that experience and having that availability is nothing but a positive aspect in my mind, so.
Agreed.
I'm gonna continue that, and I think that didn't start with me, so I can't take credit on that, so. But again, we're gonna continue to encourage board, the staff, and expanding it out to, I know you guys, I might be getting a little bit ahead of my skis here, but I am doing a little bit of research into some commissioner trainings as well. I have been in talks with the chairman about it and everything like that, so we are looking into it, we're researching it, and we hope to have something for you this fall that maybe an outside entity provides some insight into how to be a commissioner, right? So, but again, some of those programs that we have, obviously our Leadership Oakland and our Leadership Academy. I think HR just started the new Emerging Leaders or something to that effect. So I'll let them talk about that in theirs, but we have Andrea from our staff is gonna be participating in that. So she'll give us some feedback once she goes through that. And then there's obviously our HR courses that we have through skill development. And so Oakland County does a great job of once you're here, we just don't sit and be complacent. We want you to grow. And the board kind of, I would hope, leads the way in getting their staff members to be a part of those, but it could be a little bit off there. I don't want to step on any other departments' toes, but I challenge them, so. So just speaking to other programs that we have, I know that you guys are aware, but just to kind of revisit it, I know our comms team does an excellent job in their monthly BOC bulletins that you guys receive, the talking points that are shared. So I can't, the annual report, we just started with kind of enhancing our caucus announcements so that you guys are aware of the in-community aspects and other news throughout the county that, we can share with you. And going with that aspect. Social media posts, I know that we just launched the BOC LinkedIn page. That's helpful to get information out there for those professionals that are always on LinkedIn. Let's see. Other activities with community outreach programs that I just wanted to highlight for you guys is obviously the Tri-County Summit that we have in September, October timeframe. The Black Excellence Awards that you guys do in February. The Outstanding Older Adult Award that we do in May. Women's History Month Award that we do in March. Youth in Government Day, gun buyback events. I mean, you guys have been extremely busy for our staff here. And we accept the challenge and everything that we can do to support. Green Schools is another one. And then obviously within this budget, our special projects line item account that we have for you guys in sponsorship. So at that point, I guess I'm willing to field any questions that you guys might have on specifics.
All right. Start with Chris,
I did the button today.
Commissioner Long,
I'm being very formal today.
and then Commissioner.
So I have a question, so it might be easy one, but on page, I don't know if you need to look up, on budget page 161. So our special projects line was so we budget 176,000 and change. And then, but we amend it for 444. So we spent 444,000, but then we're only budgeting 176 for the 2025. So is that due to some of those larger sponsorships maybe going to economic development? Or, because that's a big difference that right? Am I looking at it right? I'm hoping I am.
Kinda, yeah.
176 was our adopted budget, but we amended it because we spent 444. But then in 2025, we're budgeting only 176 again. To piggyback on that question, then the sponsorship is 175,000 budgeted for. So what's the difference is the special projects and sponsorship? Because I thought special projects were sponsoring that event. So like they're two different line items, so what's the difference of those two different line items? I don't know if I've seen that before.
So one of them is more program-based. The other ones are like kind of a one-time sponsorship of an event or something like that. I think what you see with like the kite event in Commissioner Weipert's district would fall under more of a sponsorship.
Okay.
Whereas like a Arts Beats and Eats or a, which obviously we take over or we're trying to move over to the economic development, but those type of programs where we know it's year after year, we would look and have that in.
That's more of a project
special
a year?
project,
Okay, all right. Is that
And
the
then
first
to
time
answer
they
your-
were divided though, Mike, like that, or
Well,
no?
to answer your question about the 444 versus
Right.
the 176, so we do kind of reset it back to the amount of 176 and 175 every year, so we're not continually increasing that.
Okay,
The 444 is related to a carry forward request where we know we have we have projects that the board wants to, or not we, but the board has special projects that they do want to undertake within the new year, or they might have already had it either go through committee and been approved, or it's soon enough into the new year where it's identified funding from 24 or 23 in this case that they wanted to take into 24.
so was that 444, was that
That
funding
included,
already
like,
there, was that carry forward? We already had that
Yeah.
funding, 'cause I don't remember.
It was a
ever-
carry forward. We had like
Okay.
the web-based community contract that we were trying to get off the ground with Alliance for Housing. Commissioner Cavell, if he was here, would probably be able to speak to that. That was 75,000 of that.
Okay.
It's a lot of various dollar amount projects that we've identified where it would probably be best to carry that funding.
Okay, so technically, if we lump those two together, our goal kinda is the 300 and, right, is it 350?
It's 351,
351, yeah, 351. That was good in my head, pretty good math. 351, so that's the goal of their special projects line item between the two of them. That should be what we try not to go over this year.
Correct.
Okay, all right, because that's always a big question, you know, our projects, we're getting better at them, but that's always a question. My second point is, since you just brought up all our media stuff, just the senior flyer was awesome, as we're getting a lot of calls. But next time, I don't mind getting calls, but can we put like resource numbers on them? I'm having a heck of a time finding, like, they're calling for me for way more than, and I think Yolanda said, and Phil, for the scams. They're calling me for, I need a shower, and then they found out as a nurse and said, can I come give them a shower? They thought I was the office, is your office closer? I'm like, my office is my house, you know? I'm like, I don't think you wanna come here for your health needs. But so somehow we needed to put, I think, I'm just for forward, this would help, you know, OSHA number on it,
Veterans.
veterans number on it. But not that they can't call us, but I'm having a hard time finding what, you know, when they're telling me what problem they have, what number to give them. So it would be nice to have some of the numbers. I think it would have been more effective, because they think they're calling like an office when they're calling us now.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've had really older people call me,
Yeah,
and I've
yeah.
had lovely 50-minute conversations with all of them. And I don't mind it, that's part of my job, but
Yes, of course.
and we were just talking about this yesterday, us, but if we could just put a little bit of, when we do a mailer, think of like some resource numbers, like if you have this problem, maybe call AAA, you know, A1B, and I always I've been calling Joanna a lot.
Ageways.
You know, Ageways, now it's called, right. I've been here too long, I'm always gonna call it the other, but just those numbers on there, because I've been calling Joanna a lot, like, because when you go online, and most people, when I say it's online, I can try to find it, she goes, I don't have a computer, I don't know how, because they're older. And I said, well, I can't even find it online, so you're not good. So just if we could put numbers, because that mailing was good, it was effective, because I think we're all getting calls from it, so it was very effective. But that would be my suggestion. I think most of us would agree, but that's it on
The
the
one
media.
other thing about the flyer was, it would have been good to know before it went out, because I got it because I'm a retiree, or I'm over the age. So I got it and I thought, oh, yeah, okay, this is, but some of you didn't know it was out there, so.
Right. I think we got an email though.
No,
After
not
that.
an FN.
Oh, was it after the fact?
Yeah, so that's just a.
Yeah, that is
just a
true.
little
Yeah, just
hiccup that
before,
needs
yeah.
to-
Yep.
And it was good. I'm not saying it wasn't good. I just said, we need to put the resource numbers for the seniors on there beside us, and then somehow make it clear, this is your, you know, commissioner cell number. Because I don't care if people call me. I just didn't know I have to call them back then for another 50 minutes with the phone number for them to call. So that's just my suggestion.
Yep.
Thank you. And I'm done with my finance
Okay.
questions. Thanks.
To piggyback and through the chair, if I have
You're
the floor,
next,
thank you,
Commissioner Smith Charles.
is neighborhood, there's a neighborhood office and they're sending stuff out too.
Oh.
Which does have resources and all this wonderful information. And we get calls from that, and if there was a way to coordinate, I want a copy of it, as much as we get in our mailbox that I don't want. Please give me those things.
Oh, yeah, so they may have number resources on there.
Yeah, and at least I know what they're talking about when they're like, oh, I saw you mailed me something. Oh, yeah. But I love it. I do. I think.
I know, I do
yeah.
too.
So trying to distill this down, civic clerk, folks, I don't know about you, but I'm wondering if there's a plan in place. I'm trying to ask, you know, questions in a way to get the answers I'm looking for. To, I don't know, get a discount,
Here it comes,
here
civic
come the
life.
keys. To, not a discount per se, but just something that reflects our troubles. I mean, if it was a brand, I wouldn't want my brand looking like that at a full board meeting where the poor clerk is sitting there waiting and has to individually call people by
Different every
name.
time too.
And for as much as we face the lack of transparency thing, you know, I would hate for a really hot button vote to be coming up, no pun intended, and it not work and people lose faith in our process. So that was one thing about Civic Clerk. And even like right now, I was requesting to speak yesterday and it wasn't showing. The BOC website, great. Love it. I'm glad our URL remained the same because I was concerned at first it was like hard to find us.
Yeah, that's good.
I want to commend Patty because a few years back, I was just lamenting about how people call us and they want to know about our policies. One person wanted to know about, let's just say, our policies on soil, if they wanted to bring a company here to start. And first of all, no idea what to say to that, but when I thought about it, where are our policies held, the things that we voted on and what have you, it's nice to have that board on demand space where the documents are actually there at the fingertips. It's like it's 2024. The YouTube, I commend you on that. That wasn't in place when I first got here. These are all progressive movements. I just want to highlight where even if I'm in this meeting, I'll keep my audio off, but I'll still hop into YouTube just to see what the end user is seeing because sometimes we forget about that.
I can tell you that I used that to go back to what Patty said last year.
Oh,
That's fine.
well, see, it's useful. How many, and it's probably in here, and forgive me, but how many staff persons do we do work for the Board of Commissioners?
Staff people?
Yes.
We
See, our little
have,
chart looks different in the
Right.
PowerPoint.
yeah, so in the PowerPoint, you have the total for the entire department, which includes the commissioners themselves, so 19 commissioners. So for fiscal year 2024, we have 31. Right?
2024.
Plus, the commissioners are in that 31?
The commissioners are in that 31.
Oh, including the 19
So
of us.
if you take 19 out of there, there's roughly about, like 16 or something like that, right?
Still
So we have
improved.
12 that we have currently, like, people that are filling positions. We have 4 positions that are open, and one is actually starting on Monday, as you all know. And then we're interviewing actually we're going to be interviewing here shortly for the officer position, the communications officer, and then the other analyst position that, as we've gone through all these changes, there's certain positions that were left open due to those changes, so.
All right,
So 16 total.
16. Excellent. Well, you guys do a great job with your 16, fielding all 19 of us, which is not a good ratio. I mean, it's a fine ratio, but people think we have staff when they're calling us from those postcards.
Yeah, and to office and everything.
Yeah, so those are my comments, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
My office has a
So I will just mention about the Civic Clerk thing is we are probably one of their clients that is in constant feedback to them.
Sure.
Aaron does a bang up job of, when there is a problem that arises or an issue that we are running into, he is immediately on with the Civic Clerk team chatting, saying what's going on here and everything like that. Mike is there to support him as well, due to his knowledge coming from Macomb and working with Civic Clerk. We are definitely have got their attention, I would say. And we are gonna continue to have those conversations because, we are basically invested in this and we wanna see it succeed. And I'm in full support of, having them, push them, set the standard higher for Oakland County because it needs to be, so.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Long, you had a
It
question
just
related to
sparked,
that.
yes. So are there different platforms beside Civic that we could go out for RFP, could we get rid of them? I mean, if it doesn't improve, are there other,
The
what do
short
other
answer-
counties use? Do they use this too? or-
Short answer is yes.
Okay,
More complicated answer, we could probably, it might take me a little bit longer
no,
than the
just,
time we have here. but-
that's fine. I just was
Okay.
like, if it never works out,
Yeah.
we could go out for RFPs. I mean, if it comes down here, we're still saying the same things in 2 years. Cause when you look up information, then you can't vote. When you go off the page, That's what I think happens to me, but you explained it a little bit. When you start searching for stuff, then when the vote comes up, if you're not back on that original agenda page, that's what I think
And
happens.
And I think it's
Yeah.
also training the Oakland County people as well. You had mentioned the clerk. It's,
Yeah.
you know, going through the additional trainings, not only with her, but with you guys, so that we know what pitfalls not to get into.
Right.
Right? And so, our staff is gonna work hard to make sure that, you know, we don't fall into those pitfalls so that the system can work the way it's designed to work as well.
Right, and I agree, stick it out now, because I mean, you know, but I hope these problems can be amended before, but then I would be willing to say, let's go out for, you know, we need something else. If it keeps going on in a few years and we still can't, you know, vote and stuff, so that would just be my opinion, so, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael, thank you for the presentation. You know, to echo my fellow commissioners, we appreciate you and all the good work you do for us, and I know it is a lot, no question. I did also pick up on your, we value our employees, we wanna make sure they're trained and give them advancement opportunities, which is just phenomenal. On the flip side of the coin, I was curious what we're doing, if anything, in terms of retention. Because I know I've been here for about a year and we've seen quite a bit of turnover in that time. Which again, depending on how you look at it, could be good because it means people are moving up in the role. But at the same time, I also know that when you bring in new staff, there's training and bringing them up to speed and downtime and cost and all of that as well. What are our thoughts or plans as far as making an environment where people want to stay and it's not sort of this revolving door?
I would say that they want to stay, it's just that they're almost presented with an opportunity that they can't say no to. In a sense that, you know, our staff and our team does such a good job of creating a positive culture and a growth culture, is that speaks volumes to, I know it's getting back to the other flip side of the coin, but it speaks volumes to the efficiency standpoint of that we're a high performance team. You know, we had just mentioned that we only have 16 staff if we're at full staff, right? So now we're working with 12. These 12 people, with what their expertise is, are performing at such a high level in my mind that, you know, they're doing the job to support you guys in the best way that they can, and I think it's top notch. So as far as retention goes, obviously we would look to you know, assistance from HR with some of what the county policies and best practices are, but then I would also say we're gonna continue to you know, promote and enhance that growth mindset. We want people to grow, especially here at the board, because if they stay stagnant and it's just to keep them here, I don't think you're getting the most out of them that you can, and you gotta challenge them a little as well. So that's kind of my mindset and my leadership style, is that we are continuing to grow, we're continuing to learn, our knowledge is continuing to be enhanced and everything like that. So if that creates an environment where Kresge comes out and poaches one of our high performance team members, that's what it is. That's it, and it just creates another, you know, challenge that we gotta bring somebody else in and get them to that same level as quick as we can.
Yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.
Is there anything on the budget world, is there anything that you see looming out there that's gonna be a big expense for us? Or something that we need to be thinking ahead on? You're not buying any helicopters but you know what I mean?
Oh.
We're not getting into that, no.
We have a new board.
I think it's really coming down to what is our needs when we move.
Yeah,
And that's gonna be the biggest,
We have a board.
the biggest, you know, kind of what's laying on the table right now is what can we anticipate there? I know, again, I mentioned before, working with Brian and his team, that, you know, they have some funding set aside for that, but where can we work within our budget to, again, get that best and brightest, get that, you know, the highest level that we can. Within this budget, I know, and it's just a simple, you know, we need to, the iPads are aging out. And so where can we have an $18,000 budget request that has been approved to put into there, but just come to find out that, you know, there's an even better unit out there that's about 9,000 more. So I'll work with Brian and his team prior to the adoption of the budget to find out where we can find that money and that funding so that we can have that. But that's really kind of where it comes down to, I think, to answer your question is, what are we gonna need for you guys to, you know, ease of transition without any, you know, downfall into a new building, a new space,
That would be the expense.
new collaborative efforts that we can have, like where can we find that efficiencies?
Well, I like that you're thinking ahead. And it's not, it seems like it's a long way away, but it's not gonna be,
Time to fly.
you know.
Oh, no, it's coming fast.
Yeah. It's the summer one.
All right, anybody, Commissioner Wyper?
And along the lines of budget, I mean, 24, we were adopted at 5.7, right? And we slowly amended up to 6.3. And so part of this year is we're recommended is back to 5.7. I mean, but that's mainly, we can do that because of carry forwards and what we reappropriated, so.
That's correct, yeah.
We're keeping in line with back to 24.
Correct.
We're gonna be able to maintain with it helps out that we've got some carry forwards and some reappropriated money from 23.
What we're gonna identify, obviously we'll have carry forwards every year, I think, just due to the fact that we enter into projects or we have projects approved by the board right here as a timing issue towards the end of the year, so but yeah, we anticipate to use some of that funding in the new year with the carry forward for those type of projects.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
We're facing the same thing on the cost allocations between all the buildings, that's,
Yep.
that's
Those
been across
increases
the
are
board,
kind of
everybody, so,
consistent.
yeah.
Well, I think over the last couple of years, we've actually taken the LRC and kind of offloaded that to other departments just because we're not using that space anymore. So that's, I think you're seeing it reflected in here, but it's been a couple of year transition prior to that. So this is kind of the end portion of that, what you're seeing in this project.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me see if Commissioner Powell, do you have any questions for us? Oh, she signed off?
No, I don't.
Okay,
No.
okay. Well then, with that, if nobody else has any other questions, I think we're done with
Something about the NACO
Thank you.
program card with the fee income?
We'll do a quick recess so we can upload.
Yep, we're gonna recess for a minute to, Todd, you can turn So thank you, everybody.
What does he want us to do?
We are back
Refresh?
to the budget hearings. This is our second one for today. The Information Technology Department. You'll find the budget book, page 347, and on the categorical, it's page 109. And I just wanna say before we start, I'm saying this kind of before all of these, that this has been a little different process this year. Maybe you recognize that, where we had a lot more discussion collaboratively with fiscal along the way. We've seen that it's made it, I think, for a much smoother process in our role of oversight, because it's kind of obvious by the charts and the discussion we're gonna have. And so I appreciate the work that's been done before we got here. And with that, I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourselves, and then the floor is yours. And then we'll have questions. So you're set from 1:50 to about 2:30, and we wanna try and stick to our schedule, just so everybody knows. And so we'll have probably 15-20 minutes worth of questions.
All right, well, we'll try to talk fast.
Okay.
Yeah. So Rod Davenport, CEO for the county, and I brought like the full team with me so that we have the best odds of answering your questions. So maybe we can start with Jeanette.
Hi, Jeanette McKenna, Manager, Information Technology.
Paul Maggie, Chief of Clemens.
Wolfgang Gorlick, the new Chief Information Security Officer.
Hi, Bo Chang from Clemens.
Jim Manning from Clemens.
Monte Logan, Infrastructure Services.
Kim Marengo, Director of Applications Client Services.
And Tammy Shepherd, Business Relationship Manager.
We still have more.
David Pulaski, Business Relationship Manager.
EJ Wadden, Chief Technology Officer.
Now we need a quiz. Come on,
I
Phil.
do wanna say, I
Yeah.
really appreciate the tour we had a few weeks ago. I felt it was really informative, and it was good to get to know everybody a little bit, so.
Well, good, yeah, thank you. We, as I've said, IT typically doesn't show very well. It's not usually that exciting, but I think the demos were
Right.
engaging, so yeah, that was good. Okay, well, so we'll start with the financials. Tammy will give us kind of a quick overview of, and I think some of you have taken her up on the offer to kind of take a deeper dive, but she and Kim, I think, had talked about how some of the inner workings of the accounting work. So do a quick review of that, and then I think we'll jump into on this piece, yep, so.
So before we dive into the charts, which is right after this, I just wanted to set the stage for how the proprietary funds work so that we're all on the same page as we start diving into both the revenue side and the expenses. One of the things that I learned while I was doing the deep dive with Kim and some of you is how different it is. In the private sector, usually the revenue comes first, and then you figure out how you're gonna spend that. And that is exactly the opposite here. So with the proprietary fund, what we do first is establish the expense side, and then the revenue is a function of that, because we're really spreading that expense across to the benefiting departments as equitably as possible. So sometimes, because we look at the revenue first, that's really where we focus in, but in reality, we really set those expenses, and then we figure out how they get spread across the county to show where the benefiting departments are. And I just wanted to cover that because some of our slides, you're gonna see some decreases, and in the private sector, you'd be worried when you see the revenue go down, but in this case, it's actually good because our expenses went down. And so the reduction in revenue is actually also a good thing. They have to match. So I wanted to cover that first, and then just so you know, this is the order that we're gonna go through the 5 funds that IT is funded by. So I'm covering the IT fund, and then there's 4 more funds, so. And with that, if we can do the next slide, we'll dive right into the charts.
Oh, the clicker, yeah, I think the clicker's.
You got the clicker.
Ooh, go ahead.
Right.
Really? Okay, all right. So the first thing I wanted to start with, obviously, this is an interesting chart, right? So when you see this, you might think, how can our revenues be over in 2020? And then how can we be under revenue in 23? How does that work, right? And I wanted to start with the 2020 year, fiscal year 2020. So one thing that is also true about the IT fund is that much of our revenue sits inside our budget, but on occasion, we have revenue that sits outside our budget. And in 2020, notably, we had all the ARPA funding or the CARES Act funding that came in, and we were billing that directly or rebilling that through the IT fund. So that explains that spike in 2020. And then we started returning back into normal operations from a revenue perspective. We started mainly using the revenues out of our regular operational budget. And so at this point, we are trending down again in 25 for the next fiscal year, because again, our expenses have gone down. So any questions on this slide? And then kind of in the detail, to go there. Some of the things that stood out that I thought might stand out for you is that our charges for services have gone up for 25. This is a good thing. We want to ensure that funds are available in the departments for us to equitably rebill, so that those expenses can be allocated to the appropriate departments. So that goes up. And then you might notice that our planned use of fund balance went down. So that is also a good thing because we're going to get more revenue from our charges for services. We won't be pulling money or planning to pull money out of our piggy bank, as I called it when I was reviewing it with the commissioners. And then you can see again that we've got our total revenues are down because our expenses are going down. Any questions on that? All right, great. And then moving on to the expense side. While we have had some operational expense increases, overall our budget has gone down. Primarily, we had a lot of large assets come off the books. So if you're looking at the budget book, you'd see that our depreciation went down a bit. And that is the primary defining factor on why the overall IT budget went down. There are some increases in some of the line items that you might notice. I also like to reiterate that this is essentially an operational budget. So we aren't asking for new things necessarily in this budget. That new software or new projects that we do for customers, we bring back through deliberately to give you guys visibility into those projects. So when we have expense increases in this budget, it is the true cost. So our expenses have gone up because the AT&T bill went up or the Workday bill went up. So those are the types of things that would drive the increases in the budget. But again, overall, we're down. But you would look and see when you're kind of skimming through that big budget book, you'd notice some increases. And then you might ask, why are the actuals below the budget for the expenses as well? Generally, that's a good thing too, right? We are trying to be very careful stewards of the tax dollars. While we budget conservatively, we always try to watch our spending to ensure that we're living within our budget. So, any questions on this slide?
Commissioner Smith-Charles.
What would you attribute that to? If I'm reading this correctly, it went from, well, yeah, that's one example that I noticed was lower than where the actual was lower was under personnel, but less specific to personnel. Just what do you attribute that to? You might have mentioned it, but if you could say that again.
Why our expenses are lower than budgeted?
Yeah, the actuals.
Make sure I understand, yeah.
What trends or what's creating that scenario? How are you able to do such a good job at
So
coming in so
there's
low?
a couple of things going on here. The first, like you said, I did go back and pull the actuals from 2023 to see exactly, because that's the last complete fiscal year. So our personnel, like you said, that's actually 2 million under budget, which is attributable to, we budget for full employment, I think still, so that's attributable to our turnover, especially in some of our higher level positions that we've been grateful to fill lately. And then in the operating expenses, there's a few things going on there where we may have budgeted for something that came in under budget. The other thing is that we have what's called the IT equipment fund in this line, in these operating expenses. And we deliberately have a budget there that is designed to have some drop to our fund equity because we are expected to cover equipment that gets replaced. It actually gets saved in our fund. So if we were overspending these expenses, we would not be saving the money to pay for things. An example of that is this year we learned that all of the recording equipment in the courts has to be replaced. And it's very expensive technology, especially across all the courtrooms. It's almost $1 million. So fiscal has nicely been putting money into the IT budget that we don't spend on purpose. It drops to our fund equity. And then when it's time to write that check every 10 years, we have that $1 million sitting there to go ahead and pay that bill. So a little bit of
Only
it
$1
is
million?
deliberate. What?
I said only $1 million, technology is so expensive.
It's,
So
does
then,
that answer your question?
I believe it does, and for example, with
Maybe they'll say it.
so under IT, what's for example like bank charges, or not bank charges, charge card fees.
Yes.
In this case, actuals are a little higher, but I'm just curious about like the amended 2026 where it's only 100,000
Right.
versus $1 million in the.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So we
Okay.
actually, we went through sort of an envisioning stage where we were thinking of changing the strategy with our G2G program.
Yeah, it's
And
very timely. We talked about this yesterday.
Yes, we did.
So we have been talking about that, and several years back, we had made a decision to change the strategy for that. And that opinion has shifted, so we budgeted back to what it would be. So we had kind of thought about changing that, and now we put it back to where it was because we want to continue growing that. So that is something I figured somebody would catch, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
She was quizzing us to catch it.
And then this is sort of the detail behind the actuals, so you can see where things have gone up. You can see the operational expenses have gone down, internal support a little bit in 25, but overall we're coming in under budget or under the plan and then a reduction in the overall budget. And then all of these friends are here if you had more detailed questions.
Excuse me. I will open it up to the commission for any questions you might have. Commissioner Rahman?
Are we doing each section or?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to
Or
do.
do we wanna do all the sections and then come back?
Yeah, that's what I didn't know either.
What do you think, Rod? Do you think we should do this and then move on to Clemis? Or-
Let's kind of take the questions as they come. Yeah, because otherwise it'll be so much.
Mine's general.
Okay.
Mine was just a comment actually. I just wanted to thank Tammy because we did the deep dive. And that session, the 1 hour, whatever we spent, was so incredibly helpful. I think it really solidified a lot of this. And I only wish Tammy would do the same for all the departments in the county.
I only understand so much.
Because it was very enlightening, so thank you for that, and it helped solidify a lot of this. So no questions about the numbers.
Okay, Commissioner Long, you had a question?
So I don't know if this is the right timing, but in our categorical book, page 110, so on this one, it says personnel of a 2.4% salary increase. Is that for all IT, including Clemis and everything, the 2.4? That's a, HR question. And then is that for all the employees this year? What's the raise? I didn't know that yet.
All non-represented, yes.
It's 2.4. Thank you. That question was quick, thanks.
Okay, anybody else have a question on this section?
To ask
And just the, and the big item is depreciation on
Yeah.
on your budget number. I mean, that.
Yep.
That was the biggest ticket.
Yeah, there's, I
It's
think
almost
we're,
$3 million or,
yeah, I think there was still, we're double
and
checking.
internal services,
Yeah.
but between depreciation and internal services, there's, I mean, that's the 3 million. That's.
And I forgot the last slide. Steady with the vacancies. We keep hiring and, you know, the in and out, so.
Do you feel like
Yeah, 2.4.
retention is an issue
Sure
with
you
your
do.
department?
I think there's some natural, I mean, IT typically has higher turnover, I think, just because the job market historically has been, strong. With the state of the workforce, I mean, we're looking at some retirements, I think, coming up in some areas, so we may see an increase at least until we can to backfill the vacancies, but, some of the positions are a little difficult. HR, I think, has done a good job of trying to find competitive pay, but it still does lag the private sector to a certain extent.
Sure it does. Okay. All right. Let's see, we move on into Columbus. Yes.
Right. I'm gonna go off script a little bit if I can, Madam Chair.
What a surprise.
Not a surprise.
Said it before, I thought it, you said it.
You can come back and ask all you want on the numbers, but I wanna go back and thank you and the other commissioners who visited and did a deep dive with us over at IT. But if you recall, we had a conversation, probably about 45-minute conversation about Clemis. And Clemis has been something that we've been tackling for a while. Clemis is really our CSI. It helps Oakland County solve crimes. It helps all our municipalities, CVTs who are on Clemis solve crimes. And not just in the county. 40% of the state of Michigan's population is covered by Clemis. Clemis is a winning asset that Oakland County started way back in the 80s. It's the largest consortium in the United States. And it is widely by those chief of police and county sheriffs who have Clemis are huge advocates of leaning into Clemis. We recently requested $25 million from the state of Michigan in this last budget cycle to start to modernize Clemis. We've got a lot of intelligence, data in Clemis, but it needs to be modernized in regards to the applications. But it is not a winning strategy to have Clemis governed by Oakland County. And so we've been taking steps to spin this off into an authority. And we are continuing to take steps to do that. Our target date for that will be October 1, 2025. So hopefully this will be the last time from this perspective that you're talking about Clemis. So we'll see how successful we are as a team to do this. We will start to take steps in the next 45 days in regards to beginning that process of becoming an independent organization. And we believe Clemis is such a strong asset that we believe that we will increase sales with the modernization, and we will start to get folks down the I-75 corridor that will be interested in helping to solve crime all along that corridor. But we are gonna take steps. So the budget that you're gonna see in the next couple of slides, I'm not gonna go over those. You can go to the next division, you can come back and ask whatever questions you have, but I think that those are very conservative numbers. I think you're gonna see better numbers because we're gonna start to do what needs to be done. This county has been subsidizing for the CVTs, and of course, it's your decision as policymakers and approvers of the budget to do that for the county. But we also understand that there's different rates outside of the county, and we might be also subsidizing those other organizations that are outside the county. It is what it is, but this administration is attempting to correct that, and we believe the authority is the best way to do that. We've got some great folks. Bo Chang is helping us out there. Jim has been along the ride for Clemis and helping us as well. And EJ as well will be a main part as we resolve this problem going forward. But this has been an Achilles heel for a while. Not the technology. The technology has been great. And I will tell you that the sheriff from Lenawee County was the one that really convinced me because he is using two solutions. His county is paying for Tyler Technologies and they're paying for Clemis, because Clemis helps them solve crimes, but the mobile apps that they get from Tyler Technology, and that's where we should be. But we've been building our own software internally, and the folks have been doing a good job, but we could do better, and we're upside down in the marketplace of where we need to be. So we believe that this will resolve that. So, sorry to get off script a little bit, but I think that was really
Created a whole bunch of questions.
important.
Commissioner
Are
Wyper.
are there other authorities like this? I mean, is this that model?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
in
this would be like
in other
the
states?
Wayne County Airport Authority having
No, I
a
know
set-
what authority
yeah,
is,
yeah,
but
yeah.
but in the law enforcement information network or.
Well, we're the biggest consortium, and so we'll be setting the mark on that
Okay,
too, Phil,
okay.
so, yeah. But I can't speak to other consortiums of whether they have an authority or what, but we believe that this is the right model to stabilize and continue to provide a great asset for our law enforcement, for this sheriff's office as well as our law enforcement across Oakland County.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Smith Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Because you all are much closer to this than I lean to your expertise. I do have concern as it relates to just data being provided. I think Clemis goes back to the 60s, what were you saying?
I think 68 or 69, right?
68, yeah.
68.
And just in my information system circles and talking about Clemis, people were very intrigued about it, but also concerned about just the nefarious use of, I'm gonna call it criminal data. That might not be appropriate, but I don't know anything else to refer to it as. And just being good stewards of that, I guess, is my only concern.
Yeah.
And making sure that, I almost wish Hoffman was here because I know his thing is
No,
subsidizing.
you don't.
No, I do. He brings such flavor to the conversation. Just to the sense of, I know Tyler is huge in this industry probably, but are we, by you making it an authority, taking it away from this public space, I suppose, it removes us from being someone who's in business against regular citizen residents who might have an app for that type of thing. I'm okay with that. But again, I just wanted to elevate, one, the data that we'd essentially be relinquishing our control over, if I'm understanding correctly, this body and the board of Oakland County.
Well, the board would be appointed by the county.
Oh, the authority would be appointed by the board, okay. Yeah, as long as we have some checks and balances.
Protecting citizen information, whether it's for law enforcement or whether it's for HR or whether it's for the courts, is top concern for us in IT. So it makes no difference protecting that information and making sure that it is only used for the purposes that it's intended for. It is top shelf for us.
Thank you, that gives me peace of mind.
Okay. Anybody else? I can't believe we let him get away with.
Now we're here.
So you can get right to the next.
Right to Clemens.
Yeah.
Next to Clemens.
We'll move our slides along then and we'll get into the fire records, so.
Now let's go to Clemens.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon.
The fire records management budget covers what we can call the FRMS, which is Fire Records Management System, which that covers all of our applications specific to the fire agencies, specifically their incident reports, or run reports, EMS, medical reports, fire inspections, equipment inventory, training, and fire hydrants are the primary modules that the agencies use from that application. So we provide this to agencies both in Oakland County and outside Oakland County. So with that, we will get into the budget. You'll see on this slide that we are, this is not based on our other budgets for IT, this is a relatively small budget, just over a little over $1 million. And we're actually, our trends are to be coming under that on our actual spending. All of these applications are written in-house with our programmers at Columbus. Any questions on this? Okay, on our Department of Revenue's adopted budget, we do this fund as Executive Carlson pointed out that there is some subsidies coming into this too, as transfers in from the county. You'll see in the 500 some range from 2024, 515. That has been ongoing since this fund was started. And it was started back probably about 12, 15 years ago, the FRMS, to create applications specific to the fire department. So to get that started up, and it's stayed that way since it started. We anticipate using some fund balance going into this year, $221,000, and next year I can't explain exactly why it's down to $59,000. Our overall cost is down, so that's why it relates back to that. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm not exactly clear on what this is for. Do we service all of the CVTs with this, or is?
Well, all of our fire departments are in Oakland County receive CAD dispatch, which is part of the Columbus. They're dispatched by an agency somewhere in Oakland County, all of our fire agencies. But not all of our fire departments sign up and use all of our modules, all of these modules. Some of them use third-party vendors. They had those when this was developed and pushed out. They chose not to come on. However, they do receive the benefit of the CAD, computer dispatch, from all of our PSAPs, our dispatch centers. So it's an option for the fire departments to come on and use this. There is a fee, membership fee with that as well. And some have chosen since day one not to use this application.
Anybody else have any?
Again, you're like hopping around in all our brains today, because that was my question too. I was gonna say, what are some of the examples of services that you're charging for? But I think your question kind of summed it up.
Thank you.
Okay. There's no other questions. I guess we're moving on to radio.
Okay, the radio. Happy to report the new radio system, almost $62 million project, is going very, very well. The end users really love that new system. The radio fund primarily is funded out of the 911 surcharge. This board, or the Board of Commissioners, sets that rate at, the county rate for that is 42 cents per cell phone. That's what funds this. And historically, right now, actually the last few years, the revenue coming in has exceeded our expenses. Right now, we project that this year is going to be about $2 million over what our expenses are. So this fund in the radio department, radio communications fund, is very solvent and we're meeting the needs. Now we have to take those extra funds coming in as we have to prepare for, obviously, replacing equipment in the future. All of our tower sites are very, very expensive to maintain. So that's where we're increasing our fund balance on that as we move forward.
Commissioner Whiteford.
There's been years where it's come to where we've had to raise that rate.
Yes.
Okay, we haven't seen that in a while.
No, sir.
And so that existing rate, that seems like it might be 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, it was raised to 42 cents. Yeah, it's been quite a while. Yeah, at least that.
It's been a while. So, and that seems to been a little bit higher, or?
It's holding its own at this point, so.
Okay, and we, 2 million in excess?
for this year, projected for this year, yes.
And we can put that into, because the equipment bills have been, when it comes through and we have to replace stuff, those have been giant
Yes.
numbers.
Yeah, we have, we're down to 30-some tower sites, but several microwave sites, and to paint a tower is like $70,000, I don't know, $20-some thousand to paint a tower site, one of our towers. So yeah, there's a lot of upkeep. HVAC systems in there, 2 HVAC systems. Generators.
But I mean, that $2 million is sitting there as a kind of a rainy day fund for.
Yes,
those
it's
kind of
going into our, sort of our escrow account, if you will, or our fund balance, so we can use those funds later on for maintenance and upkeep.
In equipment too, or no?
Equipment too, yes, yes, sir.
Okay, I found my answer here.
Anybody else have questions?
Found my answer. I was gonna ask a question, but I already found it, so.
Well, why don't you share?
No, it was good. I found it. I found it. I think everyone will find it. Yeah, it's nothing. Thanks.
Commissioner Powell, you're up there on the screen. Is there anything you wanna ask a question about?
No, but thank you. You and Yolanda took care of it because I was lost a little bit on that one too. Thank you.
All right, then I guess next we have the telephone communications.
All right, we'll go extra fast because I know we have the 3 questions still, so we're trying to be
All right.
mindful of time. But,
We've been asking.
there we go. Telephones.
Telephone, so within the telephone telecommunications budget, there's, you'll see that there's a few things that this year for the upcoming budget, we've actually tried to adjust. Because as technology has actually changed, in prior years, phones and PCs were separate. So now as the technologies actually start to come together, the lines have kind of blurred. And so we've actually had costs that were contained in the regular IT budget that were very similar to what's actually in the telecommunications budget. So this year, we've actually pulled all those costs into the same budget so that we can see them and properly manage it. So we work with Fiscal to make that change. So you'll see some upticks as we look at this. You'll see a key uptick, and then I'll talk about some other things. But one of the things that's key to note from an overall actual standpoint, if you take a look at the actuals, which are driven by the expenses, we actually are seeing that our actuals are coming over what we'd actually budgeted for, which conversely means our expenses are higher because the revenue trails the expenses, okay? So maybe if we can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, I got this, sorry. Okay, so now as we take a look here, we'll see that there's a big uptick, in particular in this upcoming year, where essentially there's really 2 major factors for that significant uptick. One is there's roughly an $800,000 move from the IT budget into the communication fund, which covers off on network circuits. So we now have all the network circuits as well as the telephones into the same fund. Okay, so we're tracking that. And then additionally, I'll talk through and I'll start to explore, not talk through, but there's $800,000, an uptick that's a move. And then because of our overall cost within cell phones, as well as our LAN circuits, over the past year, that's an uptick of 1.8 million. So in total, the uptick is 2.6 for the telecommunications budget. So the big spike is really that big uptick. And those are the 2 major components. When we talk about cell phones since 2020, that increases, we've increased our cell phone usage by 45% since 2020.
How much percent?
45%.
45, okay.
Okay, so 45% our uptick is gone. And with the expansion of some of the activities that we do for Clemis, as well as from a networking standpoint, as we bring on new sites or locations, those costs actually hit our budget. So we're starting to see those costs come through. Part of it is also just the regular circuit costs. Right, so it's not, primary Clemis, but those are contributing costs. So you have your typical, your network circuit costs on an annual basis, those go up by about 5 to 10% depending on the circuit and what we're doing. So generally speaking, the overall circuit costs have been going up over the past few years. One of the things that we have not, sorry, can I go with it? Yeah. And this is on the expense side. You can see from a budgeting standpoint, you can see we actually, from a budget standpoint, we have not actually kept up with actually increasing the budget to actually cover off on the cost. So when you look at what was budgeted and where we're actually trending, right, this year the plan is to now bring us back into sync. So I'll pause there.
Commissioner Long.
So I don't know if I've ever asked this, and this is my 22nd year here, but I mean, there wasn't cell phones, I don't even think when I started, was there? No. Anyway, how many employees, is this including the employee cell phones, this number?
Yes.
How many employees actually have cell phones that we pay for? I don't think I've ever asked it, and I'm just curious now. Do you know that number?
Offhand,
Even if you do offhand, I'm not gonna quote you and put it in the paper or anything. Yeah.
it's over 2,000.
Over 2,000? Okay, all right, and then how, I mean, I guess, is it your title, who, I mean, I know like water resources, when you're out, health department, you know, I get that, those people get the cell phone. How is the other, maybe it's a human resource, how are the other employees, what is the criteria to get a county cell phone? I mean, I get when you're a traveling nurse, the water resources, you know, when you're out and about, you know, all the directors, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's management discretion. So depending on the type of job, or, you know, if people wanna kind of keep their, you know, work life separate from their personal phone.
Okay.
So the request would go through the management chain of whatever
Okay.
department.
So an employee, if they felt they were getting a lot of calls on their personal, could request, and that could be denied or not for a cell phone, is that correct? I don't know if I've ever asked these questions all these years, but there weren't all these cell phones, so that's, I understand the
Well, remote work
expenses.
too.
Yeah, you're more remote.
That's created, I'm sure.
So remote people would get a employee phone too,
Especially if
right?
they're getting a lot of phone.
Yeah, okay. All right, but they could put a request in, if they didn't have it remote using their cell phone, they could request, and that would either be approved from Human Resources or the department head.
It would be specific to that department.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Smith Charles, followed by Commissioner Rahman.
Two things, just picking off of Commissioner Long, it could also be the need for a hotspot. I mean, you're not always making and receiving calls. The question that I had is, I noticed, and I just wanna make sure I'm correct, we're no longer with Verizon. We're
So
with
we do have,
FirstNet?
we still have Verizon, right? We're trying to move toward FirstNet. In some cases, individuals don't have the coverage, so like AT&T may not have the coverage in that particular area. So we will still need to provide people with coverage. So if we move to FirstNet, AT&T, and an individual doesn't have coverage where they live or work, you know, it's not a good plan. So we will still continue to keep some of the Verizon to make sure that the individuals have coverage. But to the extent we can move people to FirstNet, we're gonna move it up to FirstNet.
Do people tell you that, or you find that out through some readout at the end of the month? Like if cause I had terrible service with Verizon where I was, and I'm finding FirstNet to be a little more reliable, stronger lines, like I have Mint, which is technically T-Mobile, for my personal device, and it's LTE right now, whereas FirstNet looks like it's 5G. So I'm just curious how,
So we work with individuals,
Yeah.
right, because you know, depending on where they live or work,
okay.
right, we wanna make
That's
sure
good
that
to
they
know.
get the appropriate coverage.
I struggle in certain parts of the house when it was Verizon, which is strange to me, but not about me. Back to you, Sharon.
Commissioner Rahman.
Though they have to do different services for them different ways.
Just one line item I was curious
Sure.
on, maintenance equipment. It went
Yes.
from 400,000 down to 5,000. And we just what that was all about. And then moving forward, it looks like it doesn't exist at all. Which to me sounded like if it's a maintenance equipment piece, that would drop that significantly.
And this is on the telephone fund?
Telephone communications,
Line item?
731157.
Yeah, even the page too. So I could look, the big book.
Second row.
355.
Well, good. Part of this would have been the, as I understand this piece here, some of the legacy voice from an overall replacement standpoint has now come off. We've actually moved to a service, so we're now treating our voice over IP solution as a service as opposed to procuring the hardware.
Flip phone.
Okay.
So there won't be a future need then for that at all.
At this particular point in time.
Looks like.
Right.
And then I wanted to ask too, one of the things that Tammy and I did the deep dive with on our call was the whole idea of internal versus external, like professional services. I know we had talked about, you know, and where that sweet spot is between kind of what we do in-house and what we can afford in-house versus keeping up with technology and what's coming down the pipeline and what we're paying externally. And this may be a bigger question that we can even take offline, but I'm just curious from the group, what your thoughts are. Because with IT changing as much as it is, you know, for the foreseeable future, are we gonna continue to have that big outsourced budget for contractor, hire, what are professional services, yeah, versus the in-house?
So my quick take, and then I'll turn it over to the team, but in the infrastructure space, one of the things we do is we look at what is the service or solution we're providing in that particular space? And do we have the skill sets internally to handle it or deliver that service? Or is there a better option in the marketplace that we could then consume as a service, right? To keep us, by way of a technology standpoint, more current, right? Typically, anything you bring in-house, you may have a tendency to allow it to atrophy.
Sure.
Okay, so one of the things, and new in this role, right, as I look at the different infrastructure services, as I start to plan out our strategy, the focus will be what is the service, what can we contain, right? What does it make sense to outsource, right? Or have another service provider deliver that service. So it's, I'll call it a service by service in the infra space. So I don't have a holistic approach. We know we still have a group of capable people from an infrastructure services standpoint. So we want to make sure that we keep them, you know, engaged and excited. But then we also want to be practical and make sure that the county residents are getting what their investment calls for.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different schools of thought. I mean, one school of thought is that you use the professional services to shape the peaks. So if you got a big project or if it's a big multi-year project, you want to staff that up and not necessarily have that in the base load of your staffing. The other piece is skill gaps. So, you know, as the brand new technologies come in, as we start to try to train the folks, there's a gap there where, you know, the business units will want things to, you know, be ready on day one. That's another thing that we would use the professional services for. I think Kim will touch on this a little bit when we get to the slides, but we're moving into an agile space, so we're bringing in a consultant to do some agile training as a coach with the teams to try to sit with them and get them on a good path. So I think there will always be some amount of professional services here, and again, along with our, you know, sometimes hiring's a little tough for certain positions, so that we'll have to go outside for that as well.
I just wondering from a cost benefit rate, you know, talking about the REIT study. I don't know, John, if you have any thoughts on that, I'm curious. We've kicked around this REIT study for quite some time. I don't know if we're any closer to identifying when and where we want to do that. But if this comes into play with all of that, you know, is kind of part of the bigger discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still going through that rate study. We were talking more Clemens in regards to getting the right rates, but we do that overall for all IT.
Yeah, I mean, there was some,
Maximus, right?
yeah, well, yeah, we talked about the Maximus. I think we were looking to partner with fiscal, and I think that we've had some other priorities, so we haven't started this thing yet.
That needs to be
We're getting a little bit behind, so I'd like to move into the rest of the slides, but Commissioner Wiper, go ahead.
Is that actuals was trending in 21 and 22 and 23. What were we doing? I mean, were we not tracking that the actuals were higher than what we were and is that actuals projected up to 6.1? I mean, you think, or?
Right now, as
25?
we look at the forecast of the current invoices we're getting from our telco and wireless providers, yes, we're trending that way, yes. Because right now, unfortunately, we only have 23 data.
Right.
So as I look at it from a fiscal standpoint, but as I look at the invoices coming in, I'm now seeing that trend, and that's the forecast.
Okay. I mean, less than 4 million up to 6.1 too. Not thinking.
Okay. All right, let's move into these slides.
Because we don't want to not answer the 3 questions, so.
Right.
So this is historical, let's not dwell on the past, we'll go to the 25 stuff.
That was fast.
Okay.
This is supposed to be 2:30 then.
Okay, so the big initiatives coming up this year, we're gonna finish up the Windows 11 upgrade. So our goal is to actually have that done and out the door by Christmas. So everybody will be upgraded to Windows 11. The other big initiative that we'll be focusing on is replacing our service desk solution. We're currently in the middle of an RFP process right now. We've actually down selected 3 vendors. And so we'll actually be modernizing their service desk. So how individuals engage with IT across the county will now be a more robust experience and similar to what people are seeing now in the marketplace when they attempt to get help. So that's a big initiative coming. And then as we spoke when you did come visit us at IT, we had actually wrapped up phase 4 of the IT modernization initiative. Phase 5 and phase 6 will kick off, or already kicked off. Phase 5 will be replacing the data center core network, which will take us all of next year to get that completed. And then we'll also be focusing on refreshing our data resiliency platform. Right, so focusing on our ability to actually recover data in the event of a disaster. So those are the other key initiatives for our IT modernization. So turn it over to Jeanette.
So real quick on our project management and agile transformation, Rod touched on that. We are undertaking an initiative to bring in an agile coach and move to a more agile project management framework. That'll allow us to work a lot more closely with our customers, make sure that we are getting the correct requirements and we're doing things in a more timely fashion. Again, with our project management transformation, we've upgraded our current portfolio management tool that we use. And again, our business relationship managers are working very closely with all of our customer partners to make sure that we're getting those projects in the pipeline, getting them quickly estimated, and so we can work again in a more agile fashion to meet customer needs.
Obviously, as we you had heard earlier, big lift for this year is the Columbus Authority, so that's on our list. And the 911 replacement.
So the 911 call handling equipment replacement is to replace all the hardware, software at the 911 dispatch centers across the entire county. Make sure they're all on the same, they'll all be on the same software so they can communicate, and if they need to go from one PSAP center to another, they can pick up the phone and still handle their calls for their agencies. And that's gonna be funded from the 911 surcharge, as well as the individual PSAPs paying for their piece of it.
And we've got other things. I mean, we're limited in space, so we've got things like the court management system. We're working with the state of Michigan to see if we can get that transition over. We've got some, technical infrastructure upgrades we're looking to do. So didn't want to bury you in the details.
Commissioner Whiteford.
On the Windows 11, it's so powerful and it does so much more. I mean, everything. On this kind of a scale, is there savings by having that other software platforms you won't have to no longer need or pay for, or?
There would be no savings by way of an overall operational delivery perspective, right? We're bringing us up to, a more current stable platform, so patching and other things.
But of not needing other redundant, things that might become redundant because that does so much.
We will still need the other, I'll call it our antivirus and other set of tools. I'll call it the real key, the key base for Windows 11 is just improving your operational ability to execute and do what you need to do with the other tools layered on top of it. Okay?
I know it has so much, but not across the scale.
It does not across the scale. And if Microsoft may overpitch their capability.
Well, Phil, you fell for it.
Phil, production's gonna go way up.
But it does so much more.
It doesn't, to the extent we will leverage some of that capability, but I'll call it the base. The other layers, right, of security to make our environment tighter, we still need to layer those on top of it.
I think.
All right. General question, but.
So our next question was around how will the IT department support the digital transformation of county services? So through our BRM roles and through our application teams that are aligned with the different divisions across the county, we continue to look at what are the business services that are offered and what are the opportunities that we can do in order to bring technology forward that can enable better services, either in the way that our teams work to provide the services or directly to offer services to county members, to community members across Oakland County. We've listed out just a few examples of things that we're going to do. So the first two around mobile field appraisal application, this is again an example of how we will empower our own people to be more efficient and effective in the field. And then the e-commerce platform, we talked a little bit about the G2G changes and the strategy there. So this is about taking that new platform forward. These are examples of projects that we will come forward for resolutions to the board when we're ready to start those in order to fund those out of the one-time fund. Some of the other examples that we have on this slide, such as the prosecutor's office case management and evidence management system, or the district court online check-in, which if you came to the IT building, you saw the example of that. We did the demo of that. Those are things that are ongoing right now. We're finishing up those activities, and then there will be continuous enhancements as we go into the next year. But those are things that we've been able to bring forward in order to continue to offer those operational improvements for the employees, as well as better experiences when the constituents come to get services at one of the locations. And then, of course, we have products and programs like GIS, again, something else we had demoed when you visited us, that we continue to work across all of the divisions in order to provide services and to expand on as we go forward.
And the residential experience data mart, this is a transformational approach to looking at how we interact with our residents. We are actually creating a single source of the residents of the county and the different services of the hundreds we offer, of how they interacted, their experience. And it gives us a different way to be able to reach out to them, whether through survey or some other mechanism, to make sure that their needs are being met. This is a relatively new thing for most governments to try this. People are watching to see what we're doing with it, but it's a pretty exciting thing to see.
All right, and then last but certainly not least, cybersecurity. So I know Wolfgang introduced himself. He's our new chief security officer after the retirement of TJ. I don't know if you'd maybe give a quick history of where you've come from.
Yeah, great to be here. Let's see, where have I come from? 25 years in healthcare, financial services, and technology. I just completed 5 years at Cisco, the networking and IT security company. Also did consulting where I was SVP of an advisory firm, and there one of my favorite parts was built and led an apprenticeship for getting young people into cybersecurity. So 1 month into the role, we got some initiatives coming up on my own side. Awesome. On the identity side, so that is your username, your password, the code you get from your phone, tapping your phone. We're going to be doing some enhancements around there. As these technologies have gotten more prevalent and more used, criminals have been going after them. So we've got some ways to strengthen them, making sure we're using stronger factors and better detection. We'll also be doing privileged access, which is really around the IT folks, ensuring that they can get in, do their work in the back-end systems in a secure way, and a smoother, easier way to do that access. On the computers themselves, the Windows 11 and what have you, we'll be doing endpoint detection and response, so effectively strengthening up the controls on those notebooks and desktop computers. On that same line of thinking, we're putting in place data loss prevention so we can have better ways to see and stop data from getting onto those notebooks. Finally, we're going to be doing some testing, bringing folks in to evaluate our controls, evaluate the effectiveness, the stopping power of what we put in place. And the final one is really the one that is the hardest to describe, but my favorite, increasing the maturation of governance for our policies, our processes, and procedures so that our teams can be ready to protect the county data.
Okay. Commissioner Whiteberg?
And we're under attack all the time, right? It's just not, there's stuff hitting here all the time. I mean,
all the time, yeah.
I mean, we just saw some healthcare places go down and Ascension. I mean, just from an employee opening an email or It's, right, is that what you're gonna do you're gonna do some testing to try to?
Testing to see the effectiveness of that, and governance too, just to maintain the readiness of the team for if any of those things happen.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Long.
So I have going back to the salary increase of the 2.4. I am a little concerned, and I think I might say this every year, the 2.4 for attraction and retention for the IT employees. Is that enough, the 2.4? I get it, it's across the board, but I mean, the private, how far below market are we for the, for the pay of the private to IT? Because I mean, I know people in IT and they're making way more than all of you guys. So I'm always worried that
For
I mean, you know this, right? We all know it.
I mean,
You agree, you could make so much more somewhere.
all my
So-
friends are in IT, so whenever we get together for beers, they're like, let me buy.
I would think that, so.
Makes more than the commissioners, let me
Right,
just say.
I know, but so I'm worried about the 2.4 across the board, if it's something that you, and I don't think you ever request, but I would be willing to consider a higher percent for IT. It's just something I'm throwing out now before we get into budget amendments and stuff, because if you can't attract and retain those good employees with the 2.4, 4% salary increase, we need to do something now about it, because you cannot, the training, every time someone leaves is more, it's costing you more than us going to give a 3.5% raise. So that's just something I'm throwing out. I always worry about it because it is not competitive. It might be a little bit more competitive, but I know what people make, and I thought I went in the wrong career when I hear what people make.
But I think Rod and team have a good balance.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is we do have some private sector employees that are complementing the full-time employees.
Okay.
So I think they've struck the right balance, and Rod's done a nice job of filling the team out. We've had some vacancies over the last couple of years. So appreciate the consideration. I
Okay.
would say that's something that we're gonna put in the back of our mind for the
Okay.
next budget cycle, but I think we're good
Okay,
this year.
and I wanna make sure, because that's something that we could do if we have to. So, I mean, I get the 2.4s across the board, but sometimes if your pay so much low, you're not gonna get, retain the people, so, all right, thank you.
We have great benefits.
All right, any
Thank
other
God for those
questions?
benefits.
Commissioners? Commissioner Powell, do you have any questions? It's going twice. Okay, well, with that, thank you so much for coming and taking your time with us, and
You've got fans.
we really appreciate the work.
Sorry we went a little over, but.
It's okay, no, it's okay.
I'm gonna be buying you lunch.
I'm gonna get my
We're
Civil
on break
Plus is
for a
gonna
minute.
start working only on mine, you guys.
So, welcome to the second day of budget hearings. We appreciate you taking the time to come and present your stuff to us and all the preparation that's gone into this. This year's process was a little different. Maybe you noticed it where we had fiscal more embedded in the discussions with the departments earlier, which really helps us. A lot of those back and forth and what's in the budget and all of that, just all have, it seems like it's all been worked out before it comes to us, and then we can see the highlights of what you wanna tell us about. So we appreciate all the work that's gone into it, and we'll let you start with your presentation, and then after you're done with your presentation, we'll have 15 or so minutes worth of questions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again for giving us some time to come before you and talk about what we'll try to achieve in the next year. So I'm Tom Hardesty, the director. I have Rob Seeley and Mike Crum, who are the chiefs of the respective divisions, and Angie Jantz, who's our internal fiscal analyst, and then our fiscal analyst, Juwan, is with us to help with financial questions as well. So the PowerPoints, we glad to get you those that help give you maybe a little pre-reading or to help reference in the future. And we'll go through those kind of quickly so we have time for questions. Just a reminder that the department was actually formed in 2021, combining what was then Homeland Security, became Emergency Management, and then the Safety Division from Facilities and Maintenance. It is, as we get through some of the budget, you'll see there's still some complicating factors there. Like IT mentioned, proprietary, well, safety still falls, much of it within proprietary. We've been working with fiscal to try to making some adjustments there, so we'll get into those. But our focus really is KPIs and what we're trying to achieve. That really drives our internal budget process. It's what is it that we're trying to achieve, and our budget should match to achieve those goals. So with that, some of the fiscal numbers, again, so the department was established in 2021, so the budget was formed then. This is mostly, like I said, emergency management. It's also tough to get a history there because we were in the midst of COVID financials. So you see, a huge number there for expected revenues. Well, that's getting into reimbursements from COVID, and then it drops down, and then, comes back later in another year. So it's hard to get a consistent picture because we're still dealing with COVID financials, and I have a slide that'll detail some of that here in just a couple minutes. But it's made it so that the budget for the EM side is not that large. It's generally general fund just over $2 million. So when you have federal reimbursements and expenditures in the $5 to $10 million range, it really makes the budget look off when that's not our normal operating budget. Personnel-wise, this is looking at our full department. We had actually 2 vacancies on the emergency management side that we just filled in the last week. And then there are a couple in the safety division that they're working to fill right now. And then with this budget, there are the position requests that we'll get into that are a combination of ARPA positions that have ended, and then some of the additional responsibilities in replacing some professional services work. Expenditures, you will see a jump there as it shows for this next year. Part of that is, as I mentioned, we're working with finance to start bringing some of those costs where they show up a little better in the general fund budget. So for example, the position that will actually report to Mike in building safety, that request is showing up in the emergency management budget, as well as some of the safety equipment. That project, which the money's actually coming from risk management and does a budget transfer over to ours. So it's moving the money so that we're tracking it within our budget. So we'll detail what those things are. So I mentioned COVID expenditures. We are still moving through that process with the state and the federal government. And we are still expecting over almost $7.5 million in reimbursements are still pending. A large chunk of that, nearly $6 million, is in 2 projects alone. One was our PPE project that was over $4.5 million. That one, they keep telling us, is very far through the system. We follow up with them regularly. We have a pretty a high expectancy rate for approvals of this 7.4 million. That's most all of that we should be getting. You know, we keep saying we hope we'll see that within the next year, but unfortunately, we've said that before.
Commissioner
I
Whiteford?
mean, that one's 2 years ago.
Yes. Yes, it's been, especially, so one of the challenges was we were buying PPE literally a box at a time. Well, the state requires that every single purchase, that individual receipt, as well as how it processed through the system is tracked. So we had to gather all that information. We worked with the fiscal department, the treasurer's office, and then the state and the feds have to go through that.
Yeah.
And for just the PPE project alone, that was thousands of pieces of.
Yeah.
So it's,
I remember them saying that.
about every quarter, I'm making a phone call to the state asking where that's at and are they moving it along. But it's still in process.
Sorry. That's,
So there's kind of a quick overview, and I'm gonna let Rob Seeley, he's gonna cover the emergency management division and some of the specifics there.
Commissioners, so our division is relatively small. We have 13 total employees. 3 of them are actually department employees. The overall department falls under emergency management division's budget. So 3 of those employees, the administrative assistant, the financial services technician, and the director all fall under that budget, as well as myself and my staff. I have 5 emergency management specialists. They're the ones that are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and respond anytime that we have an emergency in Oakland County. 2 are grant-funded solution area planners. They're the ones that take the Homeland Security grant and the projects from the Homeland Security grant and turn those into real projects and do the financial part and the reimbursement part with our fiduciary, which is Macomb and the state. Next thing is our key performance indicators, what really drives us. The siren cabinet update a couple of years ago in 2022, actually, we came to the board and asked for money in order to upgrade sirens. We're in a good place with that. We have 276 sirens. We had 93 of them needed cabinet replacements. They had steel cabinets that were rusting and failing and causing sirens to go down. We're replacing them with aluminum cabinets, which don't have that issue. They don't rust. They can get some corrosion, but they don't rust. And they'll be good for the next probably 50 years is what we're being told. So we currently have 32 cabinets that have been complete in the last 2 years. 18 of them will be done this year, and then the rest of them will be done in the next several years. One of the things that came up is there's a receiver. They not only replace the cabinets, but they refurbish all of the guts inside the cabinets. There's 2 cabinets. One of the cabinets holds a battery. The other cabinet actually holds a radio that receives a signal and all the other things that make the siren turn and sound. They're replacing not replacing, but they're refurbishing all the guts inside the cabinet. One of the things, the receivers that receive this radio signal inside the cabinets are at their end of life as well. The company has agreed to do that, and we'll be able to do that, keeping it under budget and still be under time. So we'll return that by 2027 under budget and under time. The next thing in our KPIs is our Oak Alert. Oak Alert is our early warning system, our warning system that warns residents. We currently have 23,588 users in that. We currently, our goal for this year is to get to 25,000. We've had a couple of successful campaigns in order to get the word out. And we've had some significant increases over different months when we do the campaigns. I know it sounds like a small number, but it's really hard to get people to opt into a system like this. We go to events like we were just at the air show this last weekend, handing out the cards and trying to convince people that they need to sign up for the system. So that's that project. And then communities trained. This year, we've trained 33 of our 61 Oakland County communities. We've had members of those communities that have come to training that we've provided. And in the previous year, it was 50 out of the 61 communities provided people that went through our training. That training generally consists of Instant Command System 300 and 400. That's Instant Command System for emerging disasters and increasing complexity disasters. And then we do MySIMS, which is a Michigan Critical Incident Management System. It's the state's system. And then OKOC, which is our internal emergency management system. We do training for those quarterly as well. Our employees also go through training. We have a state designation called the Professional Emergency Management Designation. The PEM, we have 7 of our employees out of the 13 that are currently PEM designated employees. There's also a thing called the SAM or the Certified Emergency Management Program that's run through the International Association of Emergency Managers. That is a much more complex thing to get through, and we have 2 employees that now have that SAM designation. And all of our employees go to one of 3 different conferences every year, at least the 3. We have many other conferences that we look at, but the Great Lakes Homeland Security Conference, the Michigan Emergency Management Association Conference, and the All Hazards Incident Management Team Association Conference. Oakland County Emergency Management is the kind of the fiduciary of the Oakland County Incident Management Team. We took that over a couple years ago, and we are still very active with that, and we send people to that conference as well. In our Emergency Operations Center, historically, we had about 7 activations between 2006 and 2020. That's about all that we could find that the Emergency Operations Center had been activated. In 2021 alone, we had 7 activations. Since 2022 to 24, we've had 5. So we are significantly busier than we have been historically. And those are related to mostly storms. We've had a couple of very major water main breaks. Active assailants, now we've had 2 in Oakland County. Yeah. Large fires, evacuations, and civil disorder. We've responded to things having to do with all of those. I have a few pictures for you. This is in August of 2023.
That's not your house, is it?
South Lyon had,
I was gonna ask about South Lyon.
yeah, South Lyon had straight line winds. It was not a tornado, it was actually straight line winds. It shows you how much damage straight line winds can do. The pile of sticks on the left was actually a building that came down. It was it was a very large old building that housed some lawn care equipment from a company. It also did a lot of damage to their Department of Public Works building and many houses, and we did damage assessment there. And we assisted them. The city of South Lyon actually got $34,000 in reimbursement from the state for Section 19 money for this storm, and in an attempt to make them back to, so it's like they didn't spend any money for that storm.
So when that one happened, and Phil is the commissioner out there, but I'm in Novi, and that storm blew through South Lyon, kind of southeast, partly through Novi, but kind of skimmed us, and then hit Livonia, and by the time it hit Livonia, it was a tornado.
Yeah.
And so the phone calls I got were, how come we didn't hear the sirens, right?
Livonia's didn't go
And so
off
my
either.
thought is, were there if there are sirens that are going off in adjacent counties, do we have some way to hook into that, or how is this system improving over time, or is it?
It is. So we look 10 miles outside of the county and look for tornado or severe thunderstorm warnings 10 miles outside of the county. And we will set the sirens off if it's not in the county but outside of the county and things are tracking into Oakland County. We don't if they're tracking away from Oakland County because they possibly won't hit us. So we do follow those and we track those storms. When we have storms there are 2 criteria we use to set off storms. One is a tornado, either the National Weather Service saying that there's a tornado or there's a tornado warning, or visual sight of a tornado in Oakland County. And straight line winds are winds in excess of 70 miles an hour that are sustained, not gusts, but sustained winds in excess of 70 miles an hour. Neither one of those things happened in this storm.
Okay.
This storm was a sudden burst. It was a cloud burst of wind that hit one time. It was one gust, and it created a lot of damage, and there was a severe amount of wind for that one instance, but there was no indication that it was gonna happen, so there was no way to warn people ahead of time.
We even had the Weather Service go back and re-examine the data for around that area and around that time. And they came back to us and said that there's no radar or indication that they could tell us, because they're the ones that will tell us, they did with White Lake. Radar's indicating a tornado condition is right or forming. But there was none of that, even reviewing the data later in this case.
Well, thanks for the explanation.
Oh, no.
Because sometimes we get those, we're the first phone call they make, you know?
Absolutely, yep. Then this year we had heavy wind and rain in Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills actually declared a disaster along with Southfield. And those disasters were denied by the governor's office. Both of them, or actually the city of Beverly Hills appealed that decision back to the governor's office, and it was denied a second time. So they had excessive cleanup costs, but no real damage to public infrastructure and not a lot of houses that were damaged. It was just a lot of costs of tree cleanup over roads, and they had a lot of roads that were closed for a short period of time while they did cleanup. Rochester City also had flooding as a part of that same storm. They had a lot of flooding in the city, but the one thing that they have a Rails to Trails trail that goes through Rochester City. That trail actually washed out as a result of the storm. The gap that was formed is about a 25-foot gap. And it is in a location that is very difficult to get to even assess repairs. Let alone do repairs. So they're in the process of looking at repairing that. They do have a current workaround. They've gone through some other trails that they have to get around that big gap in the trail. But this is a trail that is traversed by about 1 million bikers and pedestrians annually. And so it is a highly traveled trail, but this also drove a disaster declaration by the city of Rochester that was also denied by the governor's office. And then just quickly, part of what we do, in 2021, we had Oxford, and then this last year, we had the city of Rochester Hills. So those are the things that not only do storm damage, but these things that damage our communities that we really get involved with. We are still involved with Oxford. We have the Long-Term Resiliency Center that's still set up in Oxford. It's called All for Oxford. They got an extension. They're going through the end of this school year now, which gets the kids who were in high school, out of high school, for that full 3 years. And we'll be able to, at the end of that right now, that resiliency center will be closing. We just got word not long ago that there will be a resiliency center that's gonna be set up in Rochester Hills. It's gonna be called the Rochester Hills Resiliency Center. It's gonna be set up in the Brooklands neighborhood where the disaster actually happened, where it occurred. And it's gonna be staffed by some of the same people that are staffing the one in Oxford. So they're gonna take that education and experience, and they're gonna be able to apply it to a new community. And we're working on that right now. We're getting the leases and everything signed for that, and we're involved with that as well. Emergency management also has an increasing role with the county. Since we became a department in 2021, we have taken on BCOO planning. It used to fall under FM&O, that's business continuity of operations planning, to make sure that we can operate and do our operations all throughout the county if we lose the facilities or lose the ability to access one of our facilities. We also have continued disaster planning internally. In 2025, we'll be doing a large full-scale hazmat exercise in the train yard here next to the county campus. And that exercise will involve both of our fire groups, both of the MAVIS groups, as well as a lot of the first responders, and it will also be it'll be affecting the county campus as well. And we have a couple of county campus buildings that will be participating in that exercise. We're also partnering with building safety a lot now since we're in the same department, but we have kind of taken over the building drills. Building coordinators and leaders now are trained by our staff, and we manage the building safety drills on an annual basis. Another thing that we do is the warehouse support. We run a 25,000 square foot warehouse in Pontiac. That warehouse is being used for both internal and external support. We maintain supplies for a possible future event of a pandemic. When COVID hit, we were kind of caught flat-footed. We didn't have the PPE and it wasn't immediately available. We now store enough PPE so we can operate health for 6 months in our cities, villages, and townships for 3 months, and provide them with the PPE that they would need in order to make it through that or into the beginning of that pandemic, and hopefully save lives there. We also store all the supplies for vaccination and testing for the health division. We have them in the warehouse, so we still have needles and syringes and all of the equipment they would need to run a testing or a vaccination clinic, including tables and chairs and stanchions and cones if we were to do it outside, and the tents that we bought during COVID to do the testing outdoors. We still have all of that equipment. The tents are actually housed by us, and Parks uses them regularly. You'll see them out and around the campus. We use them for a lot of different events. We also store vehicles. We store vehicles and help maintain them for health, FMNO, and the incident management team for Oakland County. Health has the minivan and a motorhome that we store for their clinic in Pontiac, and that way they're stored indoors and they're not outside in the elements, and it prevents wear and tear on the vehicles by keeping them indoors. We also are a regional hub for disaster deliveries. When we had the large water main break that affected Rochester, but the water main break was in St. Clair County, we were able to be the regional hub for water deliveries from the state, and we managed the water coming in, and then we assisted all the counties who needed it to get it out to them. So we worked with Macomb County, St. Clair County, and Lapeer County and got water delivered to them from our warehouse. We used it as a regional hub. We also, Region 2 North Healthcare during COVID used us as their regional hub for bringing PPE supplies in for St. Clair and Macomb counties as well. We also do hazard mitigation grants. This year we renewed our hazard mitigation plan. We're in the process of getting that signed by all the communities in Oakland County. With that hazard mitigation grant, Water Resources Commission this year received a grant for backflow prevention for our southeast part of our county. Rochester received one this year also for a scoping project. It's for riverbank erosion for Paint Creek, which is kind of behind their fire station. Unfortunately, it is not the same body of water that caused the erosion that caused their rails and trails to degrade. And we also got an emergency management scoping project for proposed new EOC and dispatch center hardening. So in the development of that, we received that grant, and it helped us to do that scoping project for that new building going forward.
That's EM, so we'll let, I don't know if you wanted any questions for the EM side, or we can get into the building safety.
I just have one question about the PPE. I remember back then, part of the problem was a lot of people had out-of-date PPE. So do you have some sort of rotation that we're on with the PPE we store and keep track of shelf life and all that
We
stuff?
keep track of all of that now. Both, all the PPE generally has expiration dates on them. We keep track of the expiration dates, we follow them. And we work closely with our health partners to make sure that they're using that PPE prior to the expiration date, and then as they order new stuff or we're able to order new stuff, it comes into our warehouse in stock and goes behind it. So we're using the older stuff first and starting to store a lot of the new stuff that we've ordered.
Commissioner Smith Charles.
Yeah, mine was still with EM, and it's specific to OakNet. Oak Alert. Right, Oak Alert? Okay. And ironically, today something came across, and I was asking others in the room if they got it, because I thought it was phishing. I thought it was a phishing scam. If I had have deleted, you know how sometimes you'll delete old text? The only reason I knew it wasn't phishing is because I had previous text in that same thread that said Oak Alert. So that's just one consideration, is that sometimes I'm not sure if it's a legitimate, because I don't click things that I didn't request. But kind of to the point with the siren, I sometimes find myself wondering why I didn't get an alert for something that felt like powerful, storm-wise. It moved fast. Maybe that was something to do with it. But I'm just curious, if I kind of go back, there's something called Code Red that comes through. Then some of them say Oakland County Emergency, some say Oak Alert, and then like I said, today it was a missing child, which has never come across you know, as many times we've been awakened in the night. It says, a missing child believed to be in your area with a link there. And like I said, I didn't want to click it, so I did my own verification and it's legit. So I'm just curious, Oak Alert allows other
So Code
people to report?
Red is the company that, Oak Alert is our name that the county's named and trademarked. Code Red is the company that we contract with. One of the points we had there is their contract is actually coming up due, and we intend to rebid, as we generally do for professional services contracts, to see what other things are out there. But they are, you will hear Code Red. So there's a Code Red app that can actually give you some benefits even outside of just Oakland County system, where if you're driving through a community in Texas and they use Code Red, it could send you a notification because you're registered by GPS. So it does, you do end up with those kind of two different names there for that.
Yeah.
And then the third aspect you sometimes get is on your phone, what we call wireless emergency alerts. Like the weather service will send ones out automatically for tornadoes through the phones, but then you can also get Amber alerts. They're talking about elderly alerts or missing child. The state has actually just passed legislation to allow more of those alerts to be pushed through cell phones.
So through the chair, Michael, if you're listening, when we talk about those mailers, things we send out, I think getting more people to sign up for Oak Alert would be such a value add, because it saves me from trying to, did I hear a siren? Didn't I? You know, it's just so much more timely and friendly. And perhaps that's something we can send to the residents at some point.
Yeah, with the phone
Thank you.
numbers. Add it with the phone numbers.
Commissioner Rahman.
Yeah, I've got a few, thank you, Madam Chair. Couple questions. General ones will hold till the end, Chair, is that correct? Just general questions about numbers, or do we wanna?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
open to anything.
Well, my question in terms of disasters, so two things. One that frequently comes up in my district is, trains. I know in Ohio, there was a huge disaster, I don't know how many years ago that was, a couple years ago. And from my research, I was working with our Congress people, and they mentioned it's all under federal jurisdiction, the understanding of the tracks, the intersections, the gates, it's all federally mandated. My question is, if, God forbid, there was an issue or a problem similar to Ohio, what level of involvement, facility do we as a county have in something like that? And training for something like that, just so I can provide reassurance to constituents.
Absolutely, we do train for it. Authority, when you talk about a hazmat incident in particular, by statute, that will fall under a fire department. They have primary authority under a hazmat incident, but we routinely train. Rob had mentioned earlier the two fire groups. There are two different groups, they're called MABUS units, that are kind of like there's Oakland Police Chiefs, where there's two different groups of fire departments. We routinely work with both of them. The exercise Rob mentioned that's coming up, we've invited both of them for large-scale incidents where you might need both of their teams to combine. We often push, you'll hear us use the phrase all hazards, because a hazmat incident, whether it's a rail car or a tanker truck driving down 75, or a chlorine leak from a business that has an ice arena, it's being ready for those all types of hazards, regardless of whether it's a train incident or not. So we would work closely with them all the time. We practice emergency EOC activations, and that's also where the incident management team comes into play. That is kind of a link between the operations command. You might have the fire who's the lead on the ground trying to deal with that leak. There's a lot of periphery that goes on around that and a lot of tracking. The incident management team can help manage a lot of that so that the fire group can focus on the scene, and then that incident management team is getting requests for resources and information in a good format for us and clear, so that we can help get them the resources quickly. So we train very regularly for such.
That's great to hear. And then the second part of that is, for just disasters in general, it looks like you're very well prepared and very thorough as far as your disaster response. As commissioners, if we have constituents reach out to us in times of a crisis, I don't know that I necessarily would know where to turn or, to be that kind of, guiding source for constituents. Is there something in place where we would either hear from your department, or is there communication? And what is our role and responsibility if something like that would happen?
So our role is largely supporting community. So individuals were often going to push to their local community, and our role is to help make sure that community, once they get overwhelmed, have the support and the resources. Communication, as you mentioned, is very important. Our communications department is also routinely part of our exercises and our drills. And then we've actually formed a public information officer group. So the PIOs from both government and private entities meet on a quarterly basis to, again, discuss how can we better get messaging out, get that communication out, make sure we have consistent messaging. The water main break was a really good example. The first one, there were 15 communities, 3 hospitals impacted. You know, in one community, I might say, well, our water testing is coming clear and we can turn the water, tell people they don't have to boil anymore at 3. And then this community was gonna be 5, and then this community was gonna be 8. So we help coordinate, get them all together to talk, and then they agree to say, okay, we're all going to announce it at 8 o'clock so we minimize confusion between communities. So that's, again, our role is to help for consistency in messaging and consistency in information to the public.
Would it be reasonable to ask that we have some level of just communication in those discussions, just so we're aware? Not that we're gonna come in and say, this is how things need to be done.
And absolutely. So generally with us, part of a full ELC activation is administration. So the county executive office is part of that. And generally the county executive's role, one of the primary things that he's doing is communicating with Chairman Woodward or the assistant chair to help communicate to the board what is going on and making sure they get information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've got just a few more minutes here, so why don't you go ahead and finish your presentation?
Mike wanted to be quick anyway.
I was hoping you'd keep going though.
You're doing great, so.
If there is any more questions, I'm fine.
Take it as long as you keep it
So,
short, I guess.
Building safety, as Director Hardesty said, was formerly under FMNO and is now over in Homeland, and we're working through that transition. Here's the makeup of our team. We do have a communications team, which there's 7 members. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week. They're there every day. They're the primary contact for all WRC clients if they have any kind of water emergency after hours. So it's 7 days a week, weekends, holidays, they'll call in FMNO, the health department, that's the hotline calling in after hours, and we'll contact health, and then for Homeland Security. They also monitor all the alarms, intrusion and fire alarms for every owned or operated building Oakland County has. And then we'll dispatch out the resources needed for those buildings that are under our control. And then that weather monitoring that was referenced earlier by Rob Seeley, that 24-hour monitoring, two counties out, that's done by our dispatch center. And then we love to wake Rob up at 2 o'clock in the morning and let him know that there's something coming, that it's on its way. We have a security team, that's the access control, the alarms, the locksmith, the cameras. You'll see some of that. Everybody's got a badge or a card. That's where you'll see that group. The administration team is myself, and a proposed position we'll cover in a little bit in our slides. The safety team is complex security. So they're in this building 24 hours a day, and we see deputies in the daytime, but when the building closes up, that's our staff that's in here to make sure. It's also in every building on complex they're in. They set the alarms, they open the doors, they lock them at night, and then open them in the morning when people come in. And then our safety equipment team, we're gonna cover in the next slide. And we do wanna highlight, we have 2 from the Diversibility Program. They're an excellent resource in our badging station. They're a valuable part of our team. So the safety equipment program, this is one that was formerly professional services. It was an outside vendor. That contract expired in March of '24. We went through 2 rounds of RFPs working on this. And in the end, it was determined that it would be more efficient and effective to do it internally. So we've proposed having 2 new positions added to safety to oversee this program. There's a few challenges we had on the preventative maintenance, making sure we're compliant with all the standards that are out there for this program. And the cost to do that through an outside entity or internal, that decision was made earlier, the more efficient this way. There's also in the equipment itself, we are saving around 39% on the purchase equipment by doing it internally, having our staff do that. So these are the numbers for that program and having that come internally. We've added the Narcan inspection as well. So that was previously done by health, and we're able to add that just into the rotation as they're out there and do that a little more efficient, having 2 people drive out to all these different locations. We did mention a building safety supervisor.
It's a new proposed position of mid-level supervision that needed for the safety team. There's been a few things added to our team. We'll cover in some additional slides, like the threat assessment team, some of those referrals coming in, the numbers of referrals coming in. Also some project management that was formerly done under facilities management, and then us moving, there's been a gap there that safety needed some help with. We have an ADA safety equipment project that I know is dear to one of our members in the room here that we're working heavily on. And this position is gonna help us make sure we start making some progress in that. And some additional duties that were formerly covered when we were under facilities that are now something that we'll have to do internally. The ADA safety equipment referenced earlier, just a quick, there's a few standards that we have up there, and as we opened this can, we realized that it's not just ADA, then it goes into the building codes, and it goes into all kinds of other NFPA, and that's the fire codes, and we wanna make sure we don't move it and then create another problem. So that assessment's complete, and now we're at the point of starting to move. And now we have a picture of one of the options we have for some of the buildings that it's difficult to do on the walls. I was asked about the equipment here, and it's just a few feet from where we sit, but most people don't know it's there. It's in the fire hose cabinet just outside. And we wanna get it out where it's public and you can see it, and then we'll work through that whole public information as well as we move forward. Part of us have the security team and then coming over to emergency management, part of it is our projects that are now being managed by safety, that in the past were managed by IT or by facilities, and this is one of these here, this project with the jail. So the jail has some different challenges, they use a different video management system, and the project is over, and that was funded under the CIP, but there was no ongoing maintenance. And so this has been requested inside of our budget to keep that the maintenance going on that larger project. And the jail has the largest number of cameras in any one place, which would make sense. And then the storage that they have, the storage requirement they have is creating some difficulties. Access control is one that we had talked about previously, and it's one of our KPIs, and it's one of our goals. Just wanted to give an update. We're about 39% updated in the new readers. They're more secure, they're contactless. We have some different technology we can take advantage of utilizing the new system, but we're about that 39% number, and we'll continue to update those as we go. This building, unfortunately, will be one of the later buildings because of the other hardware they have. It has to be replaced as well, and it takes it offline for such a long time. So we're making sure we are very good at it before we get here, and then this larger building will be one of the last ones we do. Key control is part of that group, and it's something you'll see in the EOB if you go to the executive office building on the first floor, just next to the deputy station. It's an electronic key system. We do have some challenges with the amount of keys that are out, and this is one of the new endeavors we'll see to help us control those keys and increase our security. But again, if you wanna see one in a physical key cabinet, there's one first floor EOB, and it's just next to the station. I'm happy to go over and show anybody at any time. And we were asked about professional development. That's one of the big things we have in safety is that professional development. We really push our crew and our team to always be striving. All of our dispatchers have a national standard for the telecommunicator one. We institute a certified training officer program for all of our new trainees or our new team members. Conferences, and then the security team has their standard with the Global Exchange. It's an industry standard for security equipment, and they all have certifications in the different systems we run here on Complex. And our safety unit, they're all trained in CPR, first aid, and Narcan.
Mike had mentioned the behavioral threat assessment and management team. We had Mike and I had brought this forward a couple of years ago. The team was identified and trained. The goal is to intercede and stop someone who might be on a pathway to violence before it happens. Anyone that's read the Oxford report, that's a key identifier that was in that report. So the goal here, sometimes it might be a case that involves a worker or former worker who has a grievance against the county. But what we've also seen a significant number of cases is these have to do with spousal situations. It might be an employee who is at risk from a soon-to-be ex or gonna be ex-partner. And while that person may find a place to stay or a shelter, that person doesn't know where they're at, what they do know where they're at is at work. So it's part of a workplace safety program. How can we help make the workplace safe, help that person, one, at work, and then Mike and I both have law enforcement backgrounds. We can at least provide them some advice on some personal safety and some things that they can do, and then we'll encourage them to work with their local law enforcement agency wherever they might live. But the time, we will admit, has been significant. Our first full functioning year was 2023, and we had, I think, 12 cases. We're at 15 referrals this year already. Between Mike and I, it's been about 500 hours of time spent in these already. So that's part of the reason for the supervisor position with Mike, because it is a fair number of hours to make sure that we have a safe workplace for people, and they take time. Last thing, just touch on real briefly, you may have heard of OCTAC before. It's every law enforcement agency, including Oakland County, is part of it, been training together, active assailant training together. They'd asked us to be the fiduciary for it. So there's no real cost to us other than probably some of Angie's time and a little of my time. It's just taking their funds in, and according to the policies that their board adopts, expending those funds. It helps make sure that those funds are tracked, audited, when they were kind of operating a little loosely before, and it helps make sure that that's moving along in a good, consistent way and without question for where those funds might go. So with that,
We've asked a lot of questions along the way. Does any, Commissioner Rowland, they're a little bit behind, so we want to wrap up.
I'll be really quick, yep. So I just want to quickly touch on just numbers here. Under expenditures, I know contractual services are down, and it's explained, as far as why that's down. But salaries and fringe, I notice, are up. If I'm seeing this correctly, we're talking about 38%.
so the proposed, so the two positions that we mentioned were ARPA funded.
Okay.
Those would be in the regular budget. The supervisor that is technically building safety, the decision was made to put that in the emergency management budget so that we could track it. So that's a new position that's showing up in the EM budget, even though it's over there.
Okay.
And then, as I mentioned, the two that he mentioned for the equipment. So we figured it's gonna be about 35 to 40,000 annual savings to have staff do that, as opposed to contracting under the professional services contract, and it gives us a better return. So because that personnel number is only counting under the emergency management, where there was 13, the percentage is very large.
Got it, makes sense. Okay, perfect. And then do we have a time frame on the safety stations yet?
I'm sorry?
On the safety stations?
We do not.
Okay.
That is an RFP process right now, just to get the numbers.
Okay.
That's where we're at.
Okay. Because I know I was with Mr. Crum, I believe, right? Is the one who was kind of fielding a lot of it?
that's
Sorry. Oh, okay, Eric. So I know we've had conversations about it, and looking forward to it. I'm just hoping it all moves along quickly.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to make sure that fiscal is all comfortable with the changes they're making and the ins and outs of the.
Yeah, we're working through it.
Okay. Just don't want any surprises on September 24th or something, right? Okay, anybody else have any other questions for Homeland Security and Emergency Management? Thank you very much for coming in. It's always very informative what you do.
That's okay, no, that's okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, that's okay. I figured I'd do this myself.
And you might be late.
I know we emailed and called and then, but that's nice to find out.
Let's take a 5-minute break. Okay. Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute break and then we'll be back. Okay, here we go. And welcome to budget hearings for 2024 with the Board of Commissioners. You guys are the Water Resources Commissioner Group. One thing that's a little different this year, I think, and you can talk about this if you want, is the fact that there was a lot more upfront discussion with fiscal as you were going through preparing for this. And we asked for that. We wanted our review to be much more about oversight as opposed to the gory details of any particular line item. Now, some of the commissioners may have a question about, but we really felt like it was important for the departments and fiscal to be on the same page and understanding what's happening by the time you got to us. So that I know my experience when I first got on this was there was lots of stuff that popped up during the budget hearings that nobody knew, you know, and we're not seeing as much of that this time around. So it's been going really well so far. I hope the same is true with this group. So with that, go ahead and introduce yourselves and you can go into your proposal and then I think we will, or your presentation, we will have about 15 minutes worth of questions toward the end, so.
Sounds good.
Okay,
I appreciate it. Well,
welcome.
howdy, everybody. Good to see you once again. It's always good to come by and talk to folks. I want to introduce myself. I'm Jim Nash, the Water Resources Commissioner. You all know me, but Ann Vara is my Chief Deputy. She's here today. Steve Korth is my Chief Manager. And Brian Colburn is my Manager for Environmental and Public Services. So any questions they can answer, they can go into depth. I want to just kind of go over a few things before we start here. Our budget highlights. You'll see this. One of the significant things we're doing is new positions and upgrades of existing positions. We have 13 new positions being requested and 25 other positions for our career path because we want to make sure that all our folks have a good career path. It's the best way to make sure that we can carry on over time. My office continues to grow and we need these positions to keep up with the work we're maintaining, repairing our aging infrastructure. That's all over the county, our own stuff and the folks we work for. This is critical to continue and provide our communities with the service they desire and protect the environment and bring significant efficiencies and savings to them. Over the past year, we've entered into contracts with the city of Sylvan Lake and Pleasant Ridge to provide sewer and water operations and maintenance services. We're working with the city of Southfield right now to determine if we can provide their services for their sewage pump station maintenance. They have them all across their city, and that's just the kind of thing we do. This may require additional field staff to do this work. Again, we're a growing organization. Communities are recognizing the value of our office operations and maintaining their infrastructure and recognize the quality of work we do. And again, we have the savings by the size of our organization. I'm very proud of the relationships that our team has with all the Oakland County communities. We do something in every community, a lot in many and just a few things in others. Recent headlines, now you've heard some things coming from Macomb County accusing us of dumping sewage in the Lake St. Clair. I can absolutely assure you this has never been the case with this operation since long before I was here. Decades ago, experts concluded at the state and federal level, not our level, that the separation of storm drains and sanitary sewers in southeast Michigan simply is not economically feasible and does not solve any of the problems that would be claimed that it would solve. Water quality concerns can be addressed by treating combined flow using retention treatment facilities like our George W. Kuhn Treatment Facility in Madison Heights. There are over 24 of these facilities in southeast Michigan, including in Macomb County, where they have 3, 2 directly owned by the county and 1 that they work with Wayne County on. These facilities are required to meet the same treatment standards to ensure water quality all across the board. Nobody gets exemptions, nobody is different than anybody else. We all have the same standards we have to operate under. So if they're saying that water quality is coming from our facility is bad, then it's coming from all facilities in the region. And again, experts have shown that this is just not the case. Allowing us to screen, skim, filter, and settle all the things that we go through, the water that comes out of our facility is cleaner than the water in the drain and in Lake St. Clair for that matter. So when we're actually helping the water to be better quality when we have an overflow from our facilities. That idea of the idea that some of our elected officials in neighboring county are calling for legislation to single out our facility, only one out of the 20, or a couple of dozen that we have in southeast Michigan, is just absurd. That's not how laws work. You can't single out one place with a law. There are a few other topics I would like to share with you. Now, we talk about this, and we are the biggest bonding of anybody in this county. We're lining up significant investment in maintenance and repair of major sewer systems that serve our county. These major upcoming projects demonstrate how my staff is actively planning to address the needs of our aging infrastructure. In June, the committee authorized the issuance of bonds totaling $100 million for work with our Clinton-Oakland sewer system in the next several years. This is a major project replacing old infrastructure. Also, this committee authorized the issuance of bond totaling $30 million for needed maintenance and repair of the Huron Rouge sewer system. In May, we received authorization from you for the issuance of bonds not to exceed $65 million for needed upgrades to optimize our plant operations at the Clinton River Water Resources Recovery Facility in Pontiac that also serves 12 other communities. Finally, in May, your committee approved future bonding for $13 million for Pontiac water system and $5 million for the Pontiac sewer system. This is coming up soon, and this is that authorization that we have. These projects are just samples of the dozens of projects my team is planning to ensure an optimal performance of the county's infrastructure and level service to our community. On another side, of legislative updates, we have very important issues leading us to engagement of our elected officials in Lansing. We've been working closely with Senator Chang and a coalition of interested parties on a package of bipartisan bills to address water affordability. This coalition is everything from utilities to local communities to activist groups to just local government officials that are all putting in their input to make sure this is a system that will help everybody. The bills were introduced last October and are designed to establish a first-in-the-nation statewide affordability program for low-income-based water bills, plumbing repair leaks, and help with past-due accounts. A permanent and sustainable funding source would be established with a minimal user fee of $2 a month. Protection from shutoffs is also provided. This is really important. This will help a lot of communities make sure that their systems can do the work they need to do in the long run, because otherwise they fall behind and the cost can be much higher if you wait. We are invited to testify in Lansing before both the House and Senate committees to explain how this legislation creates a sustainable approach to balance household affordabilities and utility needs. The bills are expected to be brought to the floor for a full vote before the end of the calendar year. Our legislation we are involved in is a stormwater management utility bill. Committees to explain how this legislation creates a sustainable approach to balance household affordability and utility needs. Working with Senator Bayer, we're crafting bill language that would clarify the legal requirements of a stormwater utility and provide a transparent approach for utilities to plan, fund, and manage stormwater in their communities. Most communities don't have a stormwater utility and may be reluctant to create one due to the threat of expensive lawsuits that wrongfully claim stormwater fees are a tax. Communities need dedicated funding to deal with their existing stormwater systems, many of which were constructed decades ago, are now undersized for the demands being placed on them by climate change. This bill is also expected to be brought to the floor for a full vote before the end of the calendar year. Our office is also part of another legislative accomplishment. This past July, the passage of Senate Bill 662. This changes a law related to court-ordered lake levels were necessary to provide a natural fluctuations to extreme weather patterns. We can't have an exact measurement at all times because a storm can bring in enough water that raises it a little bit or drought lower a little bit before we either lower it or raise it. So they has to have this kind of buffer in there. There was a court decision in Higgins Lake that was really kind of devastating for lake levels, and we had to make sure that was taken care of. The updated definition of a normal lake level now allows for lake level fluctuations due to things like weather, construction, and operation of lake level infrastructure. The bill also helps the Lake District obtain financing for lake level products. With the highest concentration of inland lakes in the state, Oakland County residents and our natural resources will be better protected with this bill. It's going to take effect in March of 2025. Finally, a new building. Regarding our efforts to find and location for and design a new public works building, we have submitted the detailed pro forma for fiscal services regarding the financing for this significant project. This building will accommodate the growing needs of our field operation and consolidate staff with 5 independent buildings. The current Public Works building no longer meets the needs of our field operations due to expanded responsibilities that have occurred over the past 10 years. We will soon approach the EDI Committee for authorization to secure property. We will be reaching out for your support in the coming months as we establish a plan to move forward. This is very important for our operations and the long-term sustainability of our systems. With that, we have any questions? We're happy to answer.
Okay. I will, let's go through your charts real quick.
Please.
Sure, I can touch on the charts. Again, they're very high level, just like you introduced. I'm gonna keep it at a high level. We can drill down with questions afterwards. But we added this slide just to give a perspective of our involvement with the general fund. Out of all of our operations, we're 3% we touch on the general fund. And so this is just a pie chart showing a very, very small part of everything we do touches on the general fund. And again, the package of slides, this is a reflection of revenues. This clearly shows our revenues come in higher than our actual expenses. We do have generate a surplus each year, a small surplus, but we're very cognizant of our expenditures and making sure our revenues cover them. A lot of our revenue comes from our soil erosion operations, and the revenue increases as the economy in Oakland County generates permits. So things have been good, and so our revenue's been very healthy from that operation. It absolutely covers our soil erosion team's expenses as well. Again, our revenues here, our charges for services, a lot of our charges for services come from not only soil erosion permits, but it's allocated from other parts of our operation. So our environmental team, our safety team, their charges come through the general fund, but they're also charged back against our systems to cover the costs of the labor for these employees. So we have allocations coming back to cover some of these costs that hit the general fund. Expenditures, again, just like revenues, we keep a close eye on these. We meet with fiscal just like everybody else does on a quarterly basis, making sure our expenditures don't exceed our revenue. And in this case, this chart shows we're very much on target. We don't exceed, our expenditures don't exceed what we bring in. This is an interesting chart. You'll see in that first column under personnel, there's only one person, it's Jim Nash, who charges the general fund. His salary is paid by general fund, and that's it. Then you have our operating expenses, very minor costs associated with those. There's some contractual services, office supplies and some commodities, and some professional services as well. We have a line item for that. The best example for charges that go to that area, for example, professional services, we used our allocation from the general fund to look at the lake levels and the dams throughout Oakland County, not just the ones in our jurisdiction, but we generate a report and a follow-up to that. Something that benefits the county at large is typically what we would use these type of line items to address if we don't have a specific fund to cover them. Our internal support, that's our building space allocation, our IT allocation, insurance, and our labor is allocated through there as well. But again, a lot of the labor is reimbursed from the other systems through the general fund. For our positions, we're around 400 positions. As Jim mentioned, we're growing. We've asked for 13 more, but we do have vacancies. We have 55 full-time positions that are vacant. And so to put that in perspective, I think the key is 21 of those positions have been vacant for less than 6 months. So there's quite a bit of turnover in those 55 vacancies. The other perspective I wanted to add is 22 of those positions are union positions, a lot of field operation positions. We'd like to fill them. Again, we're limited in space, as Jim talked about the new building, so we'll fill them when we can, but space for equipment is a challenge, space for additional personnel is a challenge, and that's why we're pursuing this new public works building. There are still 12 non-union positions that are in there that have been vacant for longer than 6 months. I think you'll see in the coming weeks, I think 3 or 4 of those may go away because we're advertising and we have some good candidates that we're reviewing, but we're continuing to try to fill these positions, keep up with the turnover, and keep up with filling these long-term vacancies to address our needs. As Jim said, we're a growing operation, and we're doing the best we can to, with the labor force. Final slide, you just had some general questions for us. And I think as far as major infrastructure investments, as I'd like to call them, Jim touched on them, and these were things that came before this board, this $100 million bond issue for our Clinton Oakland system, 15 or 16 million for the Huron Rouge sewer system. So what that really shows is our office has been looking at these systems. We've been inspecting them. We're inside those pipes, seeing the condition, and we're trying to stay ahead of this aging infrastructure, trying to get these repairs scheduled for the coming years with the resources we have available, cognizant of rates when you start to add these major projects into the rate program. But it's very important for us, very important for the communities that we keep these systems up to speed. Or else you'll have things like sinkholes under roads and terrible things like that could happen. So those major bond issues are really important to us. It gives that snapshot in the next 3 to 5 years of what we're going to be working on and staying ahead of our infrastructure, keeping it in good repair. I do want to touch on sustainable water management. I know Commissioner Markham, you hear a lot about this at the Drainage Board with our Clinton River Water Resource Recovery Facility in Pontiac. We're continuing to invest in that facility. A lot of our investments lead to energy recovery, where we can take the waste stream, recover energy out of the waste stream, and put it right back into the operations of the facility. So every tens of millions of dollars we've already invested in that system, we're continuing to do that. We're continuing to be a very sustainable operation, recover energy out of this wastewater plant. But there's another wastewater plant that has had significant investment. It's Commerce Township's wastewater plant. So we operate that plant under contract with Commerce Township. And they just had an investment for this STEC process, and that has really taken the biosolids that are generated and eliminated the need to landfill those biosolids. So there's a cost savings there. And this new process also enhances the nutrients in the biosolids so it can be used to spread in farm fields. So very green, very sustainable, cost savings, good for the environment. Very successful project. Another investment of what we're doing for sustainable management in our systems. The final item up there, I think that's what we do every day as far as collaborating, not only with our communities, our fellow counties, Great Lakes Water Authority. We have all sorts of our staff, part of technical committees with the Great Lakes Water Authority. We meet regularly with our fellow counties on inter-county drains. And just the other big thing that we always keep our eye on is, the master plans for the region. The Great Lakes Water Authority kind of handles that for the region, and we're part of that too. We're at the table looking at these long-term plans for our region. So we're definitely a regional office. Basically, that's where Jim has taken us to be. If there's questions on what I discussed or some of the things that Jim brought up, or the details in the budget, we'll do our best to address those.
Okay, I'll open it up to the commissioners. Commissioner Smith Charles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jim, thank you for being here with your team. Maybe this is the first time it's occurred to me, so I have to give you credit where I noticed that you said he was the one employee.
Yes.
So I feel like I'm all up in your Kool-Aid, Jim, when I look at this personnel expenditures. But I'm curious, where are the rest of the people reflected? Where do I find?
Sure. So the drain equipment fund's an internal service fund, and so all the other employees are paid out of the drain equipment fund, and then we charge the systems that we operate and maintain to reimburse the drain equipment fund. So all those local systems that are out there, we've got about 3 or 4 dozen of them that we charge to normally. They're the ones who are we're recouping all the costs from them when they pay their bills.
So is that under revenue, charges for services, reimbursables?
No, go to page 336 in your big book.
Thank you.
And you'll see all their.
The big picture was that pie chart I originally showed.
Yeah.
It was a drain equipment fund, part of the pie, that everything flows through.
Yeah,
And that's
okay.
reimbursed from them.
Yeah, so
From the
it's a pass through
municipalities,
there, and
right?
it's allocated out to all the systems Brian mentioned and all the systems that are in our jurisdiction, our drainage systems and so forth.
Got it.
So it's quite a big lift by Oakland County Fiscal Services to keep track of all that.
Great. That satisfies my question. Thank you.
Okay. Do you wanna ask a question?
Yes, I did. So I did see the presentation when you folks were at Commerce. It was very interesting about the new, I learned a lot that night. But I just wanted to, I realized when they were there that their contract went up like 11%, but that was water and sewer total. But are you thinking that's gonna be enough for the municipalities? Because they are getting hit with all the contract increase. I'm a little worried because then the sheriff's gonna be 30% and then that was 11%. And so do you think that's gonna be sustainable, that increase for more than a year? I forgot what the slide said.
Were you at that meeting?
I was not, but what I can.
And none of you, no one I knew was really there, but they did an excellent job.
At a high level.
Yeah, yeah.
At a high level, what we do is we look at what are the expenses we expect to incur each year, and then what are we gonna charge to reimburse that, right?
Okay.
So
There was something that triggered the one that, and I forget now, that triggered the increase in the one, for Commerce, I know there's something, I
As we
forget.
hire more employees too, we're seeing a little bit more on the overhead side, and I think that was a concern that Commerce Township has, that there was a little bit of an increase in the overhead. And those are the allocated personnel, so those are people who work on all the water systems or all the sewer systems that get
Okay.
allocated back.
And there was an issue, I think, that required more personnel or something, I remember, that was a couple, maybe more than 4 months ago, but they did a good job though, they were there.
There was
I had a good meeting, cause it was a good meeting for me to be at, so.
Thank you.
But, yeah, so, and, I just was worried just with the contract, but I know you guys aren't gonna raise everything if you don't have to, but, just they're gonna get hit, a lot of our locals are gonna get hit with a lot of increased contracts from the county, so.
I could add, one of the things we're working on and getting very, very close is to have these rate projections so these communities could see, hey, what's gonna happen in the next 3 years, what's gonna happen in the next 5 years.
And they did that for them, I think.
And
Yeah.
we're trying, it's not as robust as we'd like it, but we do have that information, we try to roll that out so there's not these shocks or something.
They did say that, and they were gonna get back with them on a few with them, cause they wanted to know like 3 years out, just to at the budget time, just like we do here,
Our
so.
goal is to have a 5-year plan for each
Okay.
of our systems.
Okay.
And we're slowly rolling that out, it's
Okay.
taking time.
Good, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Rahman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the deficit you have in employees, it was a pretty big number to me compared to many of the other departments that have presented. Is that presenting a challenge, I guess first off, is it presenting a challenge in your day-to-day operation? And two, is there something we need to look at or consider in order to decrease that?
The thing with the breakdown is really what I've been paying attention to, with significant turnover, these 21 out of the 55 is turnover in the last 6 months. And so it seems like we're always going through the process to bring people on and keep them. That's the key. Plus, we have 400 positions, so the percentage of that. And then the vacancies, like I said, it's 22 vacancies longer than 6 months. 22 of those are field operation vacancies. Even if we filled them, I don't think we have the room to house the staff and the equipment. But we've always been running with them because we've always been pushing for this new facility for years and years and years now. So they've been just riding with us with the budget. And the other 12 that's been open for a long time, we're working with Oakland County HR. We're looking at compensation studies and those type of analysis to track the talent so we can, because we advertise, but we're not gonna hire unless we have a qualified candidate. And to do that, we're gonna work closely with the HR team and say, some positions we absolutely haven't filled in years because we haven't gotten the right candidate. And we didn't wanna just jump in and we're absolutely looking forward.
Another challenge we have is entry-level positions, like laborer type positions coming in and encouraging people to be in the water field. It's not something that people wake up and say, I think I wanna work in water and sewer today. So we have to actively recruit and we have to really try hard to bring those people into our organization.
Couple more things too, we're also working really hard for career paths for young students coming out of high school, the trades, we're working with community colleges to try to introduce maybe some more coursework to introduce the field of water, which I think is really important So that's a challenge too. I wanted to add something though that Steve said about compensation. And it's not just the entry level, we're also having a hard time attracting seasoned and veteran employees with 10, 15, 20 years experience because part of the compensation package, which is a challenge for the merit system, is a time off. When you enter into the county, currently you don't get vacation time. And some of these seasoned folks are leaving positions that may have 3 or 4 and 5 weeks of vacation. They typically have families, so that we lost a couple of good candidates last fall at the plant because they just didn't want to leave that vacation time behind. So we've addressed that with HR, and we're going to continue to address it because we think it's really important to attract all kinds of talent.
And through the chair, I mean, with HR here, is that something that, is that exclusive to WRC, or is that a bigger situation? Because I know we've heard from a few different departments today that have all mentioned, hey, look, attracting, retaining, it's a theme, right, through many of these departments.
We do hear that during our recruiting in other departments too, because like Ann said, we're looking at getting employees who have been with their current employer for many years and have banked up over that time a large amount of leave time. So it's a matter of how we could redesign our leave time program and pay for it.
So I just make sure, I guess how those, the union positions, those are non-union positions, okay?
The ones I'm speaking of were not.
Okay, all right, appreciate it.
So also, we've done a few apprenticeships and we'd like to do more. The ones we've done were very successful, so we'd like to do more. We're also doing, like Ann said, we're doing outreach to high schools. We have a Blue Planets job program now where Oakland County Schools, I think we had more than 200 kids this year doing one, just to learn what we do, get that hands-on experience. So there's a lot we're trying to make sure that we're bringing folks up, and I've said it before that we're the average age of my folks is look more like me than folks coming out of high school. So we're getting retirements, we're getting things like that. So we need to get that. We need more folks to come in and just as much as we can for workforce development, especially in the trades. And I want to do more apprenticeships. So.
Is it similar to like internships? I'm familiar with apprenticeships, but
internships tend to be like summer or maybe stretched over a year, but apprenticeships have a guaranteed job at the end as long as they do the qualifications. It's half work, half academic, or a balance of those. So that's a really good way of approaching that. And I think I'd like to do more of them. Getting folks at the bottom who are motivated is really important.
Yeah. So the other key too is, when you get people coming in, you need the talent because we need our field staff to be licensed to operate these facilities. And it's very important they have both the academic side and the hands-on experience because that's, sometimes it's a mix, right? You need that optimal mix, to get these licenses from the state so they can meet our requirements for our permits and so forth to operate our facilities. So that's one of the things we're concentrating as well is giving folks time to study, paying for their licensors fees, things like that. So we're trying to do what we can.
Commissioner Wagner.
Can you tell me more about 5 independent buildings as a piece of property?
So right now we have our main building, we have one on Elizabeth Lake Road that is for pumping maintenance and things like that. We have what are the other ones around here?
Dixie Highway.
One on Dixie, the one on campus here for our cross connections. And again, all these buildings are much older buildings that are very inefficient, and this would be an extremely efficient building. So we'd save money that way. We don't have room to store some of our equipment outside. We'd be able to store it inside. It lasts longer, so we'll be able to keep it longer. There's a bunch of benefits to doing this. Safety too, just getting in and out of our facilities pretty tight nowadays, and this would help us in that.
And have you done, it sounds like you've done the big analysis of why you need this and all of that?
Yeah, we've done all the homework, the financials have been reviewed, and we're working with Brian Leffler on the financials, and I think we're almost past the point of having the financials blessed with just a couple of final questions, and then we're ready to come forward and start having discussions with the board.
Okay. Are you nodding over there, Brian?
They've been very responsive, and so I want to say really appreciate our questions and digging into areas. And I think there's probably just a couple of issues that we just need to circle back on, but it's been very cooperative and very proactive, I would have to say.
That's good to know, because we've been talking about doing this for a while, and it's good to see that the homework has been done to actually move it along. That's not necessarily how things always go, and I appreciate that you've done the work, so, and that Fiscal's happy.
Do we, and on
Commissioner Rahman.
On that note, do we have a target or do we have, I'm sure it's still very preliminary, but I don't know what that picture looks like or timeframe or
Target for,
moving forward with a new facility or, you know, what.
the first step would be, once we get past the last hurdle with some legal language and support, we're going to come to the EDI to seek permission to look for property.
Okay.
That's step one.
Okay.
And once that step takes place, once we get the approval for that, we move forward. That could be a 3-4 month process, and we'll continue to come back to EDI or finance or both, whatever is required to take the next step. And once we seek property and get the property, we're told it'll be about a 33 to 36 month process from beginning to end to move in.
Got it, okay. And in terms of funding for all of that, and you'll come back, I'm sure, talk to us about all it, is that all from this bucket, or are we looking at general funds, or are we looking at?
I'm gonna defer to Brian on that.
The current proposal that's on the table is $10 million that we have in the drain equipment fund that we've built in equity over time, looking towards building a building. 10 million from the general fund, which we'd make a request for at some point in time. And then the rest would be funded through the user fees. And it would be a minor, like 0.5% increase on everyone's bill.
That's a very high level explanation, but these are the numbers we've worked with Fiscal to try to really hammer that down, so when we approach you for this project, we have our numbers good, they're good numbers, we have to write.
And to add, our communities are in support of this. They know that we need the building. We've had some discussions with them along the way, so it won't be a surprise to them. We haven't done a final presentation to them. They've been informed along the way.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any questions? I think Commissioner Powell signed off earlier and Commissioner Cabell never signed on, so.
Excuse me. Spirit.
Oh, I only have one question
here.
And it's more general. It's about utility coordination with the roads and DTE and consumers and everybody and all the work you're gonna wanna do here and that we are doing in the next few years. What are you doing to improve that communication and planning process up front? I will use Novi as an example, and it's not you guys, it's GLWA is out there. 13 Mile has been closed. Well, now it's Meadowbrook has been closed for freaking ever. We get these phone calls, you know, every other day, and nothing's happening. It's just an overall frustration and you know, we don't even know who to call, right? Nothing's happening on that road. Is it GLWA hasn't done their thing? Is it that they're waiting for the road to cure? Nobody knows, you know, we don't know. So my question is more general. You're just a piece of that. What are you doing to help that process along?
At a very high level, our projects team, our construction team, they have annual meetings with our counterparts at the Road Commission, our counterparts at MDOT to look at their next year's plans and 5 years plans, cross-reference with ours, so that we can make sure we're not coming in after them, right? Or we can coordinate our project when a road is closed with their project. So we're very active on a project by project basis, you know, with those two firms. But regarding the utilities, we do have key contacts at, you know, whether it's DTE or consumers that we regularly check in with for our major projects. And we in first way they submit their plans to us to see any issues with our facilities, so we have an idea of what they're doing. So we have key contacts with with the utility companies to coordinate these type of things. Does it always work out for the best? No, we know that by just driving around, right?
That's good.
Some of the hiccups are unavoidable. When there's federal money at stake and there's a time limit when that money's gonna expire to do a certain road project, the project's going forward no matter what. And it does cause a bit of scrambling for the traveling public. So we just do the best we can to coordinate a project like that. There's a lot of examples of that are in Pontiac, when you see a lot of road closures, because they're very successful in getting some grant money for road work and other things. And of course, we have a lot of work in Pontiac for our water and sewer systems, so we do the best we can to tag along when an area is closed. We try to get in and do our upgrades and repairs. But it's on a project by project basis, and our unit has key contact folks. This is kind of how we operate right now.
There's also an asset management group at the state level that's trying to help with this process, and Carrie Cox from our office sits on the committee for that to try to help grease the skids on this communication between utilities. And utilities aren't always, gas and electric aren't always as free to share as some of the
In a
public
perfect
utilities are,
world, utilities and us, we'd all have our 5-year plans, and we'd put them in a bank where everybody could just call them up on the screen, and that's a perfect world, and they're moving towards that, but not everybody has these plans, and not everything is, some things are more emergency and emergent type situations for repairs, but like I said, we do the best we can, we do communicate, but there's still a lot of work to do.
I think SEMCON created a utility coordination plan, started one about 4 years ago.
Right.
And
We have a great chart.
Yeah. It was a great plan. I'm not so certain how it's being followed. I know you're the vice chair, aren't you?
Vice chair.
Yeah, okay. So maybe,
Well, that's kind of why I asked the
Yeah.
question. Yeah. It is something that, it would be really great if there was a place where everybody could just feed in their plans, and then red flags would pop up, you're conflicting with you, and, well.
the main portal.
So it is Great Lakes Water Authority that's doing the Meadowbrook project. It's not us, so I just wanted to say that.
You guys were doing 13 Mile, which also was a problem for a while, but it's not a problem.
Yeah, so I've talked to them a couple of times around it, but I think there was a problem getting parts or something, and it was one of those long-term, they had to wait for a while, but I'm not sure. They don't tell us a lot about that stuff, but it is definitely them, so.
Okay. Good to know. Okay, you went through the questions, went through your charts. Anybody have any other things? I thought you guys would go over and you're under the time.
Right.
We do our best.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you so
Thanks for
much.
your information. Appreciate
Good to see
everybody being here. All right, so tomorrow.
We'll do public comment.
Oh, yeah, we still have to do public comment, okay. Is there anybody here from the public who wishes to address this committee at this time? Seeing no one, I will close public comment, and there's no other business to come before us. I call this meeting adjourned.